Jeez, Mace.
Okay, we should be going live in about 5 seconds.
Just gonna say bloopers are a bad idea.
For
Okay,
Mace's
okay,
third.
shush, shush. Now we're live. Okay, so welcome to the next episode of Convince Me Otherwise. Today's episode is Feminism is Sexist. So let's go around the room and see what people's positions are on this. Andy, are you a feminist?
No, I don't consider myself a feminist.
Why not?
Because I think the term is a little bit too focused on a specific form of inequality. I'd rather call myself an egalitarian. Also, the words obtained a bad name over time.
Basically, same position as me. Dao Su, are you a feminist? Dao Su's not there, we'll come back to him. Doolittle, are you a feminist?
That's a complicated sort of. I don't believe in equality. I don't think such a thing exists in the real world.
Do you support the concept though?
Yeah, so I think that it's important that people are treated fairly or equally under the law in terms of the rules apply equally to everybody. But that doesn't mean that I believe in equality. I don't think two people can be equal to one another. So that would be hard for me to say I'm a feminist, because then that would imply that all women are equal to all men or something like that. If you take it a little bit too far.
Okay, you're definitely not a feminist then. Would you call yourself an egalitarian?
No.
No. Okay, interesting.
No.
Male supremacist?
Nope. Nope. I don't believe in supremacy either.
Alright, well, give me your label.
Okay, no, I'm not an I am a. I can take positions on any given topic without aligning with an identity.
Okay, you're on the fence. Hohenheim, are you a feminist?
I believe in equality. I'm an egalitarian. How do you pronounce it again?
Egalitarian.
Yeah, I'm egalitarian, but I'd say I believe in the tenets possibly of feminism, but I wouldn't call myself a feminist, because I wouldn't call myself a protector of animals, protector of this, protector of that, protector of race. I'm a more humanist, I'd say, more than an egalitarianist as well. So
Okay.
no, then.
Do you have any particular issues with feminism, or is it just like any other cause, you just haven't really thought about it?
I see it the same as possibly the Black Lives Matter and a few other of these modern kind of hyped up problems that kind of don't exist a lot of the places. So they're seeing problems where they're not there really, and I think that's causing more problems. When I was younger, I saw Jermaine Greer talk for a day, and it caused more problems than solutions. That there was problems where they didn't exist before because of people trying to find feminism where it didn't exist. Sexism where it didn't exist.
Okay. Kapowski, are you a feminist?
No, I'm not. And the word has a lot of different meanings, and I don't think I fully 100% agree with the ones that I'm aware of.
Okay, that's a concise reasoning, thank you. L, are you a feminist? L seems to be AFK. We'll skip Lexicon because I'm oppressing him. Zombie. I'm joking. Lexicon. Are you there?
No, I'm not. I'm definitely a feminist. I really need that blue check mark from Twitter. But otherwise, no.
Okay, and zombie.
I don't like to put myself in a box, but if you look at the true definition of feminism, yeah, I would say I'm an advocate for equality, but I do not align with like radical feminists and Marxist feminists and just like the fucking freakazoid feminists out there, and they're actually pitting women against each other.
Okay, thank you. Let's circle back around to see if Dao Su's back. Dao Su, are you back? No. Elle, are you back? No. Okay, never mind then. Who was it I was talking to before the stream started who said they disagreed with me on this? Was it Lexicon?
It was me. I only think I partially disagree with you. The reason before the stream started, I made a separation between the different grades or eras of feminism is a lot of people are especially myself are definitely for women voting. I think there should definitely be some equal rights between women and men when it comes to making decisions. But third wave feminism takes, I think, a step too far and leads into the whole borderline female supremacy type situation, where women's positive rights end up producing results that are inequitable to the rest of the male society.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think feminism, at least what I've seen of it, seems to be just a man-hating. It's literally just it's like they're basically just campaigning to oppress men, from what I can tell. That's all it seems to be to me. It's like the very opposite. It's basically like the female version of what they call patriarchy. Matriarchy, I suppose. They're campaigning for a matriarchy. It seems to me, anyway. And yeah, just the blatant man-hating that you see in that movement as well. It doesn't look like an egalitarian movement to me. I really was hoping there would be someone who could come on this stream to tell me why that's not the case. Who was it that asked me about which definition of feminism I was using before the stream started? Was that also Lexicon?
I think it was me.
Okay. Should we have a look at definitions then? What do you mean when you say feminism?
Let me ask you a question. Have you heard of the term swerf or turf?
No.
Because this throws a whole other direction in your pitch.
Right.
Turfs are trans exclusionary radical feminists. And they think that liberal feminists are the enemy when it comes to sex worker rights. And a swerf is a let me see. I want to get this one totally right, because sex worker exclusionary radical feminist. So that's just, a woman who is totally trying to make sure that there's no discrimination against individuals that are engaging in sex work. So they're like a sex worker advocate.
Okay.
So
I wasn't really thinking of either of those. When I think of feminism, I imagine someone who would call themselves a feminist would say they're in favour, they support equality of opportunity or equality of outcome. I don't think they really understand the difference between those two things, but they'd say they're in favour of some sort of equality for women.
Yeah,
that's how I imagine they would describe themselves.
Huge undercurrent here in America in regards to sex worker rights. and legalizing or decriminalizing. And this entire group has a lot to do with pitting women against each other, in trying to pretty much say, if you don't agree with us, then you're against us, and you're bad. You're against women and women's rights to choose to sell their poo nanny.
What's a poo nanny? Oh, you mean
China.
poo nanny? Okay, right. Okay. I thought
Yeah,
you meant.
being YouTube friendly.
I thought you meant poo and then nanny as two separate words. Okay.
Yeah, so zombie has a lot of past history with talking about sex worker issues, right?
Well, I'm more focused on the anti-trafficking movement. So people who are not by choice.
What's the difference? What's the difference between trafficking and just someone being a sex worker?
Well, if they're
freelance sex workers are okay.
No, if they're under
sex workers with agents are not okay.
No, if they're under 18, they don't have in America they don't have the choice to exchange sex for anything of value. That includes like a place to stay or a meal or drugs, right?
Whether they're not their women.
They can trade it for something that's not valuable.
If they're an adult, a young adult or an adult, and they have that level of force, fraud, coercion, or intimidation, with some of them, obviously they need a third-party exploiter in that. Then that would be, and that could be a parent, or somebody in their family system that continues, to exploit them. Then that would be someone that has not had choice.
Okay, so just in colloquial terms, hoeing is probably okay, but pimping is bad.
No, to put it in a layman's perspective, as a man, if you're buying sex, you don't necessarily know if there's a third-party exploiter. You could be potentially speaking to a pimp on like a device like your iPhone and have no clue that you just sent your text messages with your cock pic to a pimp who's now setting up a date with one or multiple girls that he has under his wing. Happens every day.
That sounds like an appeal to ignorance.
I don't know. I would say that's called fact. And I could probably give you thousands and thousands of evidentiary documents that I provide on a daily basis.
Right, so pimping is bad. I was right about that.
Yeah.
But the prostitutes themselves, as long as they're freelancers that aren't being exploited.
Yeah. And they're not giving money, and they're not
younger than 18.
And they're not providing
money. They're not being
money
exploited by a third party.
Yep. And they're not
being coerced. They're not being endangered.
But you have to also look at your state law. For instance, in my state, if I am selling sex and I'm providing items of value to an individual, food, whatever, and at any point there's any level of domestic violence, they're going to get popped for trafficking if they're caught.
Right. So in summary, sex work is a sticky issue. If let's just say you think you own your body, so you can sell your body. Well, maybe you can't. And especially if you're not entirely in control of your own body.
It goes beyond that, because women move in and out of coercion and, maybe get rid of their dude and they're on their own renegade for a while.
Yeah, doesn't everybody.
Yeah, and, back and forth. So the thing is you just never really know. However, sex work is a lot broader than obviously just selling sex. Like it, could be cam modeling. a lot of other things that are going on there.
Yeah, strippers.
Yeah.
Actual prostitutes that work at a brothel.
Yeah, well, strippers actually do sell sex in quite a bit. Dates are made in strip clubs. There are pimps that pick up money out of strip clubs. So, like, don't be ignorant to think that trafficking doesn't happen out of strip clubs. I would say.
So but to come back to the topic, like, is feminism sexist?
Mm-hmm.
Given all this that we know now about the sex work and trafficking industries existing.
You know, how many jobs do you know out there that require someone to eat a dick for a living? Like, are there other jobs that individuals can have? Did you guys see that special on, is it John Oliver, or one of his gigs, and the response by individuals who have been trafficked, where he compared sex work to just working at Subway and slapping some meat on a piece of bread?
I haven't seen
it was
that.
recent.
I guess it depends on whether you enjoy it or not, right? Like, so there's a lot of jobs that you might take as a male that are neither enjoyable nor safe. Like, let's just say the infantry,
right? Or maybe being in law enforcement. That could be considered an unsafe job, right?
Right, but I mean, law enforcement's, largely male, but there's no restrictions from females being in law enforcement, and probably there's a good 20%, I would guess.
Yeah, I could say I've probably made a couple million off of the government in my profession over the course of my career.
So there's a lot of professions that require some level of swallowing one's own personal pride and,
right,
and maybe putting yourself in danger or in an embarrassing situation, like
right. The thing is if you're looking at a living wage job for a woman, and I happen to have made quite a bit in my profession. I have a retirement. I could retire. Could have retired when I was 50 if I wanted to. I've had great health insurance. I don't know any stripper. I don't know any sex worker, and believe me, I know many of them, that have made the amount of money that I've made over 26 years in a predominantly male profession that could be considered dangerous. It's about opportunities. So to wrap it back to your feminist question, it's equality.
I'm not really sure what this has to do with feminism, but unless someone new joins the room, I'm happy to stick with it.
Owning your body, being able to, like, obviously I don't have anyone in control of me. If I decided I wanted to send you a tit pic, Mace.
Well, wait, can I stop you on the owning your body part?
Yeah.
And let's just talk about that. Is that a principle that you would say is a feminist principle? Like, so, like, if you're, like, I'm a libertarian to a large extent, right? So my primary moral foundation is self-ownership and owning my body, owning my thoughts, owning the results of my actions personally. Like, is that a feminist? Is that a feminist moral virtue? Is that a, like, owning your body? Is that one of
I don't know. I would think it is. I would think it is. I know that it is for me. So I'm just speaking, actually from my perspective on that. But
yeah, because like a lot of what I've heard from feminism, at least in the last decade, is the collective guilt and collective virtue assignment of, there was a historical patriarchy that did something, and you're part of that because of some collective trait that you have, and therefore you owe something to women, right? So that's like the third wave feminism, or the postmodernist version of it.
Yeah, I don't think I'm owed anything as a woman. I've been able to navigate systems, like I said, in a predominantly male work environment for almost 30 years now. And I've, had to work hard. I do realize that I tend to mentor women in my profession a little bit more than I do men. So yeah, Mace, maybe I am being a little discriminatory there. I have what I call the pink handcuff key club. So I give new females coming into the workforce a pink handcuff key, and they keep it in their pocket and they use it. And some of that's for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but also it's kind of like I'm not doing that for the dudes. But they come to me and I talk to them about shit. So I don't know.
Trav, I'm guessing I already know the answer to this, but just to confirm, are you a feminist?
Well, I'm fine identifying as a classical feminist, and what I mean by that is, but I don't call myself purely a feminist nowadays because of, how bad things have gotten in certain feminist circles towards man-hating, and it's women's turn to take over the world. Men had their chance, all that crap that I think is, sexist. But classical feminism, equal opportunity for women. I think everyone should be able to identify under that label. I do want equal opportunity for women. If I have a daughter one day, I want her to have equal opportunity in this world. I don't want any opportunities for her to be stifled. Now, if she happens to want to do things, and this is where like modern feminism gets a little bit strange, when like if a girly girl, quote unquote, wants to do girly girl things and have Barbies and dream of one day finding her Prince Charming and getting married and being a stay-at-home mom, there's nothing like subservient to the patriarchy bad about that. There's nothing, but that kind of, in some circles, I'm saying, in the more radical feminist circles, that's seen as something that needs to be discouraged and avoided, because the only reason why they could be doing it is that they're getting it from their friends, or they're getting it, from the media or from other things. I don't want to see parents sticking their fucking hands in the mind of their children all the time. Just let them grow up, guide them. I think again, young boys should also, I think it's a good lesson to say that all equality for human beings across the board, regardless of sex, regardless of race, I think is a good general lesson to teach, moral lesson, and that's just based on my moral foundation.
What do you mean when you say equality? Are you talking about equality of opportunity?
Yeah, of course.
Equality under the law, or are you talking about equality of outcomes?
Well, equality means equal opportunity. I think colloquially, when we say, do black people have equality? And if the mission is to make sure they have equality, that just means equal opportunity. Now, if someone wants to say that that's taken on a new usage, and that people don't know what it means anymore, and that it might mean equal outcome, then we're obviously going to see where that essentially destroys almost any kind of like company model that you could come up with. You know,
I agree with you on that, Trav, because frankly, I mean that's that culture of everybody deserves a fucking trophy.
Well, I totally, you know,
well, not only that, but like the wage gap, right? Like the big thing that people talk about these days is like the wage gap, right?
Well, I'll tell you something about the wage gap.
Okay.
And I think we have pretty good sample sizes in the clinical psychological literature to be able to make statements. And I know Jordan Peterson gets people's panties in a twist. Maybe I shouldn't use that term when we're talking about feminism. But when he says things like, you know, on a very general global scale, if we look at women as an entire group, we might see some similarities, let's say, from a big five personality perspective. Now, let me say with this, and this is where a lot of Jordan Peterson fans like think that like, oh, I figured it out. That means each individual woman should you know, I should apply that to each individual woman when I meet them, like as a general rule. No, that's not what these stats. That's not the way these stats are supposed to be used. It's more just an insight to some of the on a very large sample size, some of the differences we might see between the sexes when it comes to measuring personality in the way that the Big Five measures it, the ocean model. So you know, people need to take that with a grain of salt, but they can also, but they should also understand that, like, you know, there are things that we can discover, and here's where this stuff is important. Let's say you want to reinforce to girls that it's okay for them to want to get into engineering, for instance. It's okay for them. Some kids are not going to have the upbringing that makes it feel like it's okay to step outside of that. Like for a young man to be a drag star, right? For a career. It's like those aren't things that usually. No, more the more colorful type of drag. So like there's some things, and maybe these insights that we get on these mass generalizations that we get from these personality tests, maybe we can structure our parenting or our education to kind of reflect that people I'm just saying, like, shape the system so that we can use that information to maybe focus in on certain areas that might be getting missed because traditionally it's mostly been men as engineers in human history. So there are probably some ways to sell engineering programs from like a marketing psychology perspective to women in a way that we haven't kind of come together to set that up, like, because it kind of grew organically throughout that large generalization of you know, the tendency for women to be stay-at-home moms traditionally and men to go out and get careers. So I think this is a very like postmodern way of looking at the system and trying to figure out where we can improve it, not taking so many things for granted, not necessarily erring on the side of conservatism when we're thinking about what are some ways we can improve and maximize the pleasure of each individual's experience.
Okay,
but Mace,
so
to convince you otherwise, what's your claim that feminism is sexist?
Yes.
So classical feminism, which is, you know, a form of feminism, I would argue to you that you are a classical feminist because you believe in equal opportunity for women, right?
I'm an egalitarian. I believe in, I support equality of opportunity regardless of gender. I
wouldn't
you
say, are a
right.
classical feminist by my definition.
I wouldn't say
Yeah,
I'm in favour
was-
of X for women. I'm in favour of X for people, not
For
women.
people. Yeah,
Because I don't care
Yeah.
if they're woman or not.
So, but you understand.
I find this feminist's obsession to say everything is just for women instead of for people. I find that sexist. I don't like.
I hear what you're saying, but you understand why the feminist movement came to be, right?
Not really. I wasn't around then.
Oh, okay. Well, that would maybe help because women, as we started modernizing the world and there was less war going on, women had the opportunity to go out and start having careers and things like that, and they wanted to have a vote. They wanted to. They wanted to have the equal opportunities that men have that they didn't have. So that's why the movement, that's why feminism, as an ism was essentially created and invented, because there were some women, and look, not every woman, by the way, for any of the feminists out there that say all women are feminists. No, they're not. There's many women that don't think that women should have equal opportunity to men. They think that certain things are men's jobs, like some women would say that being a leader of a country is a man's job, and women shouldn't be getting into this field. I disagree with them on that, but I'm just saying, feminists, I hear all the time say, we are speaking for all women today. Don't do that.
Right.
Same when it goes for black people who stand up and say, black people hate Donald Trump, when there's millions of black people that actually like Donald Trump and voted for Donald Trump. Like, that's all I'm saying. That is
Exactly.
focus on individualism, not this like, oh, I've decided I'm the leader of the whites and I'm going to say what the whites want. It's like that. I don't think this is helpful.
Right. It's almost like what was I going to say? Like, God, what did they call it? Colonialism. What am I? Orientalism. It's almost like Orientalism if you're phrasing it that way. Of if it's not European, if it's not this, then it is all Orientalism. It's all the wrong. The stark contrast. Because there's so many different branches of just people in general that not one person can just speak for everyone. But what I was gonna add to that was that I think feminism, or kind of the root maybe of that word, even started back in the late 1800s with the women getting the right to vote in some states.
Sure.
I would say even earlier than that, actually. I recently learned about an ancient Greek myth which contained a lot of frighteningly modernistic, man-hating feminist undertones to it. It was about the Greek goddess Artemis. And actually, now I think about it, I already knew quite a lot about the mythology surrounding that goddess, and a lot of it is very... she's basically the goddess of female supremacy, although that's not officially what she is, but everything surrounding her... all the mythology surrounding her is about female supremacy, as far as I'm concerned. And when I think of feminism, I think of that. I think of people who only care about women's rights and don't give a shit about men. And it seems like that has been prevalent even since ancient times.
So one thing, Mace, I will add to that is I do... I belong to a lot of atheist groups on social media and different groups, and when issues when women's issues come up, I'll give my opinion about something, and if the right person disagrees with it, they'll say, you're just saying that because you're a man, right? So this is that's the kind of sexism that I would like to see eliminated from these conversations. And this thing like, well, you're a man, so you don't get a say in this issue because it's an issue to do with like women's bodies or something like that. I would never say that to a woman about any issue to do with a man's body or any issue.
Yeah, same.
I want to hear women's opinions, men's opinions, and whoever else, whatever other gender construct that wants to give their opinion on something. That's just that's how I feel. I mean, all of this comes down to like just seeing people as individuals and not a group statistic, and not seeing, I have to say it frustrates the hell out of me. Like I get seen as a cis white male, like, and reduced to that. Like I don't reduce people to that. I've never reduced individuals to that. So like, stop doing that to me.
I call them humanitarian haters.
Yeah, well,
they just hate humans.
Well, there is some of that definitely in the veganism movement. I know that's a different topic, but I've started to expose a lot of people who are vegans who, you fundamentally get down to it. It's like, you just don't like that we're omnivorous. It's like, but anyways, Mace, I don't want to take away from your time here, but this is awesome. Great topic.
Yeah, it's a good topic. I don't think this stream has gone particularly well because there is not a single feminist in the room, despite there being quite a large number of people.
Well, I mean, do you want to? You can give me a check mark on that because I identify as a classical feminist.
Would you call yourself an egalitarian?
So are you saying if we're an egalitarian, we can't be feminists?
I think most feminists would not describe themselves as egalitarian. They would say they're just feminists.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
how many?
I've literally.
I have two sons. Why would I try to pit or hate men? I think you can be one and the same.
Yeah, I think you can be if you're defining classical, you can be an egalitarian if you define classical feminism the way I am. It's just a check and balance to say, women. I believe, from my subjective moral standard and values, that women should have equal opportunity to men, and that's not to say that men's opportunities should be taken away. I would never make that claim. But yeah, equal opportunity rate on equal outcome, absolutely not. In certain situations, we have to take care of people in society. Again, subjective moral standard. Take care of people in society who cannot take advantage of equal opportunity. For instance, people who are, mentally retarded, people who are disabled. Like, we need to have ways of taking care of these people as well. But yeah, man, I think I don't think claiming classical feminism makes you not an egalitarian. However, I won't call myself a feminist. And the reason why is because the feminist movement has so much in it that I disagree with nowadays. And I gave some examples earlier, but I don't want to be lumped in with people who engage in sexism. And I think there is a lot of sexism in feminist circles. I get reduced in these circles to simply just a man saying something, and I shouldn't be listened to for that reason. And I don't like that. And again, and I get the same from the Black Lives Matter community telling me that I should just sit and listen and not say anything when Black people are talking about Black issues.
Yeah, you're just a white pair of testicles as far as the BLM feminists are concerned.
Pair? I mean, aren't we supposed to have three? I mean, I'm just being an idiot.
No, was it
I noticed two more people joined the room. Are either of you two feminists? Let's start with Jack.
I think I'd probably stick closer to what Pangburn had said. If like I am a feminist, to be a classical feminist, that I would also call myself an egalitarian as well.
I found Travis's response confusing actually because I said there are no feminists in the room. Then he said, "Well, I am a classical feminist," and then he says, "But I wouldn't call myself a feminist." Kind of a confusing response.
Well,
really.
okay, so I would, yeah, if we're, well, I think he's saying it because classical feminist isn't what feminist is anymore, at least according to what that is. So a classical feminist would be a completely different like section of that than it would be to be a feminist nowadays and what the nomenclature is.
Possibly.
So where, well, the biggest thing that I think is interesting about this is when a lot of the pop feminists and the third and fourth wave feminism are talking about equality for like jobs and stuff like that. They go, okay, there's no women CEOs and there's very few women CEOs and very few women doctors and very few women in these incredibly high position levels. But just like a lot of other people have brought up to the point, no, as far as I could tell, none of these feminists want to equalize bricklaying. None of the feminists want to equalize how many, like, men and women in war. Very few of them want to equalize the ones that have jobs.
I wouldn't care if they did; they'd still be sexist.
Well, I wouldn't care if they did. But the thing is that their agenda, like kind of what Travis was saying, is pushing for equal outcome for everyone for nothing. When they're doing it under the guise of, oh, this will make us equal, when it's not about
the
equality.
Things they want to measure.
Exactly, it's equal in the things that they want to pick and choose to be equal in. If women could choose, like, if women could be equal in everything and still choose to not be in the draft at all, they'd do it. And men would still be in the draft. That's not equal.
Can we make sure that we're not like categorizing all feminists like that? Because you're really talking about the Marxist and the radical type feminists.
I very much. If that wasn't clear with when I was talking, that is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. Like, I've heard it from mouths of individuals that are kind of in this, local Antifa movement here. Like, if I could just get paid the same amount of money to whittle my little sticks and sell them on Etsy, that's really the goal. Like, to be able to do whatever the fuck they want, and for which is maybe limited type of work, and get paid the same and have the same outcomes and benefits. They want the housing, they want the food, they want the trips, everything else.
And that's what I'm talking about.
I'm like, work hard, bitch. Work hard. I've fucking worked hard.
Zombie, do you know anyone who would call themselves a feminist? Not a classical feminist, just they would say they're a feminist.
I see and hear them all the time in our local university.
And do you think they're sexist?
Oh, hell yeah. But you're talking about more the Marxist radical types.
I'm just talking
I don't
about
think a
feminism.
typical...
If there is a distinction to be made between Marxist feminists and regular feminists, then I'd be open to hearing your arguments for that, but I don't make a distinction currently.
Hold on, my family just came up here. I'm gonna go dip and go hang out with my little one.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. We'll move on
Thanks
to
for joining us.
Jason Torn. What's your opinion on this? Are you a feminist?
You can hear me, can't you?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Interesting topic. I probably wouldn't. I'm not going to qualify it. I probably would consider myself a feminist. I wouldn't qualify it as a classical feminist. I mean, I think that the feminist movement, with regards to equality for the sexes and emphasizing the clear disparities that women have struggled with for the last, I don't know how many hundreds of years, up including today, are valid. And I think lots of women, I mean, to go to what I think it was, what is it? I can't see. Captain Jackaroony. Nice handle. That's, I think that we strive for egalitarian perspectives. But people are different. Women are different than men, and that there are some things that men do that women can't do, and there are some things that women can do that men can't do.
Like what?
And I certainly recognize that. But I think that,
Hold on, don't
striving
move on from that. I'm going to need an example.
Well, like just the example we talk about with the military, that I think that women should be able to serve in the military and serve on the front lines, and there are some women who are competent and qualified to serve on the front lines. But in general, I think that from a percentage perspective, many women, aren't equal to men in physicality, strength, those types of aspects, and that can be a negative in terms of like combat military. Women have more nurturing perspectives. In some ways, women can be better leaders. I hate to even say it. They can be calmer. They can be not so testosterone driven. And in my experiences, I know a lot of women who are great leaders that. And sometimes I think we'd be better served with more women in Congress and in the Senate than we have. So I think that there are good examples of where things that men can do better than women and women can do better than men, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't strive for equality. And women are not equal in regards to many aspects of our society. And that's just my perspective.
So just to confirm, is it your position that men are always better than women at being soldiers?
No.
Yes. Did you not? He very much made a point to where he said that like he's in general, not that all men are always superior to women.
If that's not always the case, why did you use that as an example of something men can do and women can't?
Because I would say because of the example is a very few and far between choice when you see women serving on the front lines. So you're talking about a really small percentage of women that are capable of doing that. We're comparing that to an extreme amount of men that are capable of doing that, and we're extrapolating based on the very few numbers of women that actually are serving on the front lines of the military versus the extreme amount of men. Not only do I notice everybody's general biological knowledge of general physical superiority in men and women, I think that can go to show that generally men are better suited to be in physicality and combat than women are. So that's why I think he used that example.
Yeah. Because you're always going to be... Yeah, go ahead.
Can you give me an example of something that only men can do and women can't do?
Well, I mean...
There's a contest that's been running in the U.S.
25 pull-ups.
There's this endurance run that's done by, I think, Rangers in the U.S., and the first woman to ever complete it was a couple months ago. And when you look at the comments...
well, if a woman's done it, then that's not an example.
Let me explain. I'm not done. The people in the comments, a lot of which are Marines, said, yeah, look at her state. She's barely walking. They're having to remind all the soldiers around her not to help her cross the finish line. She's limping, literally limping. Like, I'm pretty sure she's tore her ACL from going through this endurance training. Now fight in combat.
And is she...
This is a test that's meant to be,
is she
can you do this?
My next question is she the fittest woman in the world? If not, then there's probably another woman who could do it better than her.
For sure. I'm just pointing out that
she's probably one of the... Not the fittest, but one...
But she's not the fittest.
Yeah, and
but pointing to the 1 in a million exception is not exactly proving.
No,
she's in a very high percentage.
She has to be in the high percentage to even be able to take this test, never mind complete it. And then on top of that...
Isn't that the same for men as well, though?
Not necessarily, no. Like, there are thousands of Rangers out there. Like, it's not like... This isn't SEAL Team 6.
But these men
I'll give
are
you
not
an
your average
example
men,
of the difference. I'll give you an example of the difference in physicality between men and women. When I was in college, when I was about 21 years old. Yeah, when I was in college, about 21 years old, I was able to squat 950 pounds or so, which put me in about the top 1% of men. And to my knowledge, there isn't a woman anywhere ever who has ever squatted 950 pounds. going
Actual
back
humiliation.
through all of history, through all of time.
I think I saw the world's heaviest for a woman. I think it was like 650 or 700 pounds.
Right. So
yeah, but it's a trans woman.
There's probably 10 million
That's
men
even
in
worse.
the world that are living today that have squatted as much as I did when I was in college.
Which is fucking badass, by the way.
And no woman ever in the history of all of the Earth, going back 4 billion years, has ever squatted that much, and probably never will.
And is that because women are...
So there's a difference. It's not a different.
So is that because women
It's
are...
not a difference in.
Are women physically incapable of lifting that much weight?
It might be so. We don't know
Yeah,
that, but it could be that.
Probably, yeah.
Men have more muscles than women, by the way.
Wait. Let's be really clear. Like, you're kind of touching on this issue of like, well, can a woman do it? Is it impossible for a woman to do it? We're talking about like overlapping distributions here. We're talking about what's the distribution of like the average amount of weight a person can squat, as an example. And
Yeah,
like,
so I wanna know-
I mean, there's a biological difference between a man and a woman, in terms of the hormones that they generate, and
the typical height, their bone density, their weight.
and
all these things.
there's a few women that are as tall as me, and they can't squat. None of them have ever squatted 950 pounds.
Was it a Mace?
Hello.
Did you have a specific point to make off of that? Like, was there something you were trying to get at there, or like, it seems like we're not really.
I wasn't really making a point. I was just trying to understand Jason's perspective.
I mean, if we compare like apples.
Oh no, sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
If
we compare apples to apples, like, oftentimes people are like, well, the fastest woman in the world can outrun, many college athletes, so there are women that can compete with men. But if we're like, who's the fastest man and who's the fastest woman in the world? And we say, well, can the fastest woman in the world ever beat the fastest man in the world? I would say no, definitively no, that's not going to happen. We don't have, I mean, we're only touching on physicality here. There's a lot of other aspects with regards to people, but from a physical perspective, men have more physical dominance in many things, not everything, but many things, and that I think it just distinguishes men from women. And there are things I think women do better than men. So
absolutely.
Can I ask you a question, Jason? How can you be an egalitarian if you recognize these things?
Well, I mean, I think that we strive for treating people equally, meaning somebody can have differing capabilities, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we treat them differently and that they don't have equal rights, and that people are.
You value them equally as a person, despite the fact that they have different characteristics.
Yeah,
I don't even think you can value people equally. That's nothing.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I don't help.
Funny. Like,
I'm not going to help the 26-year-old.
Do you value me as a stranger the same way you value your family, for example?
That's not fair. I think he probably meant under the law.
That's what egalitarian really means. Is you have an out-group preference.
No, egalitarian means you think everyone should be equal under the law.
I think that's the base of any sane society. That's not.
It's not the basis of feminism.
Like, I don't think my family has any more right to live or die than you do. Like, I don't think my family deserves to live, and you deserve not to live.
Why is it then that you take your paycheck and bring it home to your family instead of bringing it home to somebody else's family?
No, that doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. I'm an egalitarian. And it doesn't work like that. The point is, it's about treating everybody equally, right, based on their character. Period. It's really not that hard of a concept. So based on people's character, yes. So even if your character is,
so if you've got a son that's a shithead, drug addict,
if I've got a son that's a murderer, and I've got a stranger as a murderer, I still think that they have equal rights as people, right? I still think that I value their lives equally, okay? Do I have precautions with my son being a murderer and a stranger being a murderer? Yeah, totally different precautions, because I want to make sure that I'm secure and keeping the things that I enjoy and I love and that help me in my life, like my family and so on secure. That's just being smart. I still value their lives equally to the point where I don't want anybody to die. I don't want anybody to be treated differently based off, what they've done in the past or what they might do in the future. I just judge off their characters and treat them appropriately.
Okay, so if you have me and the trolley, the common trolley problem, you've got your family and you've got me, right? Who are you going to let the train sort of run over?
I don't want the train to run over either one of you.
Yeah, I mean, you're forcing
You're
putting me. I reject the dilemma.
Why do you reject the dilemma? Because if you treat people equally, then you should have a equal outcome in that situation.
I have no qualms whatsoever stating my position that my family, I absolutely will save them over some random.
Let me answer. It's really easy because the point is the dilemma you're putting me in. I only have two options. So first off, I hate the trolley example when it's used personally in the wrong ways, because people arguably, and you would argue this, have a multitude, or probably even endless amount of options to diffuse it. But let me give you a grain of salt, or let me give you an inch without you taking a mile. Is a better way of putting it. Let me give you this. If you were to come at my family with lethal force, I'd fucking kill you. It does not mean I devalue. I give you equal opportunity, sir. I do not give you equal outcome.
That's different.
I just had a look at the definition for egalitarian, and it does refer to equality, meaning everyone's treated the same under the law.
Yeah.
It says social equality a lot in there too in that definition.
Not the ones I looked at. What's social equality?
Well, that's just equality of the status that you give somebody socially.
Yeah, Mace, but that's the it's you could say it's the primary consensus of any sane society. It's nothing special, right? I don't think it's the egalitarianism that people actually sort of espouse when they say that.
I would have to estimate that maybe about 40% of people in the West are not in favour of equality under the law.
I think most people don't know what half the things that come out of their mouth, but I would say that
egalitarianism. If you're egalitarian, why don't you have a Ukrainian?
Hold on.
Why don't you have a Ukrainian in your home right now?
Hold on. Let me say this. So egalitarianism is only one. Here's a better way. I'll just say it like this. I don't think you could be a humanist or practice humanitarianism without egalitarianism, because it's a tenet in that. So when people talk about egalitarianism, it's usually done through, hey, I'm a humanist. I believe in people. I'm an optimist towards people. It's usually done in that mindset. It's not really like, I'm an egalitarian. Just want to say that. Sorry, Doolittle. Go ahead.
I don't really
So if you're an egalitarian, why don't you have a Ukrainian living in your home right now?
These are dumb analogies. I can't even believe you're bringing these up.
No, I'll entertain his question.
That's a very silly, like...
I haven't had the opportunity.
Can I answer the question?
I mean, like, not like logistically, would it not only be like incredibly difficult to get someone from Ukraine over here to get into people's houses, man? But like,
well,
I can give an equally dumb answer to that question.
No, don't.
They're refugees. They need to go to the closest country, not Canada.
That's a legit answer.
Can we not give dumb answers? I'm going to actually honestly answer your question.
It's just simply
as an egalitarian,
logistical problem.
Well, let's assume I owned this house. This is actually my parents' house. But if I owned the house, as an egalitarian, I have not invited an Ukrainian person into the house because they do not have the right to be in my house under the law. No one does. That's equality. Only the person who owns this house has the right to be here. And if someone wants that right, they can buy it. Everyone has the right to buy this house from me if they want to.
But if you value all people equally, And you know
under the law.
that there's 2 million people that are.
I didn't say I value all people the same. I said that people should be equal under the law.
I'm just saying, nevertheless, you go to work, you get a paycheck, and you bring the paycheck home to your family, and you don't bring it home to anybody else.
What's that got to do with the law?
Hold on. You're taking egalitarianism outside the definition, and it's being and I would say it's being hyperbolic.
Egalitarianism refers to the law. That's it. It doesn't refer to an individual's opinion of every other human being. It's just how the law treats people.
You can have a position that, as an example, the people in Ukraine have a right to live. And I think that they should not be attacked. I think that they are equal to the people in Russia. They shouldn't be, they shouldn't be getting killed. I can think that and feel that there is equality amongst those people and people in America. Like, those people don't have any less or more of a right to live than I do. But that's different than saying, well, how come you're not taking all the money out of your bank account and like paying for as many Ukrainian refugees to come to America? If you can't do that, then you're a hypocrite. I don't think that's kind of, I feel like, where these analogies go to, and I don't think that's a fair interpretation of egalitarianism.
I think in, like, if you think that all people are equal
under the law.
Yeah.
I don't hear you talking about the law.
Under the law, no, I'm okay with. I agree with under the law, right? The law should apply with everybody. But I don't think all people are equal, and I don't treat all people equal.
I don't think.
It sounds like you're an egalitarian.
The nearer that a person is to me in geography and in relationship, then the more duty that I feel that I have to them. And my response to my own answer is that I don't have to take a Ukrainian person into my home because they're fucking all the way across the world.
Okay, we could say that all people should be treated equally, but that's different than saying all people are equal. You
don't value a Ukrainian the same as you value your wife.
Well, that may be true, but I think that they both have equal rights. They have a right to live. I'm not saying that
who has the duty to provide that life to them.
I think this is an interesting discussion, but we're really going off topic now. So that I'm just gonna bring it back to the feminism discussion. Jason, can you give me your definition for feminism? Because you said you were a feminist, so what does that mean to you?
Equality of, like, gender equality, like striving for gender equality, like the most basic premise.
Okay, interesting. Because I would agree with that myself, but I wouldn't call myself a feminist. That's actually not what I've heard most feminists describe feminism as. Usually,
how is what I said different than what you would think?
Well, usually feminists don't say gender equality. They say equality for women. They always say just women, usually. Anyway, not always.
Well,
usually.
I mean, I see feminism as women striving for gender equality under the premise that women have not had equality to men. And that if feminists think that women have not had equal rights compared to men, and they want the genders to be equal, that inevitably raises women up. I guess you could say bring men down, but
I actually disagree.
Okay, how so?
I would say that I wish their message was more to basically take away the understanding of gender and its dichotomy in the first place. Is a movement I would be behind, to say, hey, let's treat everybody equally. We're all born with different chemicals, different ways of doing it. Does that matter to you? And if it does matter to you, then that's kind of weird. You should be going off, if you have a small female, you're going to treat them as a small male trying to, try out for the football team, or the way that they work, whatever. But that's, once again, judge people by their character and by their actions and by their body. That's fine if they're put in a physical position, but use people's strengths. That's how you should treat people, and understand their weaknesses and things like that. Just remove the idea of gender and its dichotomy between men and women.
I'm trying to really understand, what you guys are saying here. When you say treat people equally, do you mean you sort of come across a stranger on the street and you just say hello, hi, just sort of move on, or what is this? Do you mean treat people equally, as in you have job opportunity as a CEO, and your friend requires a position, and another person who's equally qualified as your friend requires that position, do you mean I'm sort of confused here? And another thing, Jason, you said you like the genders to be equal, which I think is impossible, but you like people to be equal under the law since you're an egalitarian. So how then can you achieve both, sort of equality if you want the genders to be equal, but at the same time you want the genders to be equal under the law? I'm sort of confused on that as well.
Well, I mean, I think that there's this kind of bimodal perspective of thinking about the genders, and if you can disagree with that and say that that's incorrect, that's fine. But in general, of the two genders that we've traditionally looked at, and again, I'm not trying to say anything negative. I'm not trying to imply any negative consequences to that women have been treated not the same as men, and that feminists attempt to strive to equal the playing field, equal it economically, equal it socially, and there are a lot of different ways that is approached. Now, egalitarianism is talking about just all people, not just talking about the bimodal perspectives of gender. There are issues of race and ethnicity and sexual orientation and economic status. There are all kinds of groups, and they're just individual facets. And we could say, no matter what your individual aspect, like you're intellectually, developmentally disabled, you're a person with an intellectual disability, like they're not the same as other individuals, but treating them equally under the law, treating them equally socially, like not demeaning them, that those are things that we strive for, and we're striving for that from an egalitarian standpoint. So I think that talking about feminism and talking about egalitarianism, they're two different aspects, but they both strive for attempting to balance the playing field with regards to the differences in individuals, how we treat individuals. So that's my perspective.
So feminism is trying to achieve equal outcomes, equal opportunity, equal what exactly? Because I'm still like, you haven't. Maybe I don't understand.
He says equal opportunity earlier.
Yeah, well, we talked. I mean, you brought up like
the problem with that, right? If how do you say feminism is trying to striving for equal opportunity, but at the same time, the law determines, equality in general.
Yeah.
So equal opportunities sort of encompassed in the law. So once you have once you have a situation where everyone's equal under the law, you have everyone's equal. Everyone's got equal opportunity.
But the laws.
I'm confused.
I'm sorry.
That depends on how you write the law. If you take issue with how a law is written, that can be changed. Like, laws need to be written in such a way that they do not bias the genders, right?
And laws don't always cover everything. We have laws in place, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't mechanisms to get around that. And an example would be things like implicit bias. Like people like going for job interviews, and a woman comes in for the job, and all the men on the panel say, you know what, is she gonna get pregnant? She's gonna be out for a while. You know what? I just don't think she's right for the job. That it's in academia. The issue of implicit bias with regards to women is a big deal, and I think that so I think you could have laws that prevent that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not happening and that we still shouldn't strive to address those issues.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not really going against that viewpoint. I'm more of saying from a sidestep. I just wish they'd approach it from a different kind of angle, in a broader, and it's mainly, and yeah, I do agree they do take it on a completely, so many different angles, and they have helped a lot. But I still feel like the message can now be part of a larger message, which is, hey, can we just stop? Just stop, right? Like I believe in what Martin Luther King said. What do you think of the man, or whatever it may be? But it's really not that hard, and I think it's been echoed throughout the ages. And unfortunately, it takes humans a long time. But just judge people by their character and their deeds.
I agree.
And treat them as such. I mean, that's
I totally
really
agree.
super simple. And then that way, we don't have to just spend so much time with all this other noise. At
this
the end of the day,
this is a problem, though. Your character does not entail your qualifications. In the case of a job, if you go for a job, your character, well, you could say means, it depends on the job, but for the most part, it would account for about, you could say, 20% of the requirement. Because what they really care about is economic productivity. So how do you treat people on the basis of their character in situations like that? But even so, to sort of address the point Jason sort of brought up, as far as I know anyways, I don't think there is any law that prevents, women from getting or, going for particular jobs, like a law that sort of bars implicitly or explicitly women from entry into a particular industry, blah, blah, blah. You made the claim about implicit bias, but wouldn't that be the case? It's not a one-way street. You could also have implicit bias for men, which I think, in some cases, if not all cases, you can't get rid of. So how do you sort of
I think it cuts both ways. You're right. But I just think that in general, women have been have taken the brunt of those, and people of color. That the implicit bias aspect.
Oh God! Please don't say that. It makes me want to vomit.
Well, I'm just telling you, man. Like that, you could say, well, we're using women as an example, but like women can apply for any job they want to. I'll give you an example. My wife is a psychologist.
I meant people of color. That phrase makes me gag.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I don't know why.
Because Jason, if I went into a hair salon, and I was applying to be a hairdresser, and there was a woman who's equally qualified, she'd most likely be hired, and the reverse would be the case. If I went into a barber's salon and there was a woman who was equally qualified, I'd most likely be hired. So, what's the point I'm trying to make here? I think
I know where you're going with this.
All right. Never.
I mean, you could like the role reversal, like that. If a man came in at the hairdresser salon, would there be some? And there were all women on the interview panel. Let's say, would there be some level of implicit bias that would somehow be like, I don't know if he's the right person for the job? Is that what you're trying to? Okay. Well, it's established pretty well that like in careers like nursing, where women dominate, mainly because that there's a extensive number of women that aren't moving into the job of a doctor and they're taking a lesser job of nurse, that recently, due to economic situations, men invade those, I hate to use that word, but men start to become nurses. They interject themselves into jobs that traditionally have been women's jobs when economic times are tight. And so I think that believe it or not, I think implicit bias does cut both ways, but sometimes you'll have women who are on the panel who are like, I don't think she's the right person for the job. She's not going to be able to toe the line. That happens as well. I think that it's a very complicated subject, but a lot has been written on these aspects of explicit implicit bias with regards to women.
This is what I
a lot of good research.
I just want to quickly finish up, Mason.
Make your final statements on this.
I don't think you can get rid of implicit bias, because implicit biases are, you could say, a rational metric to sort of represent the average of a category. And if the average of a category still remains the same, then you can sort of deploy all the laws, policies, resources, that you'd like. I don't think you can get rid of implicit bias. So, and I think it's justified in most cases. So,
do you want to respond to that?
I would just say that I don't think it's a matter of getting rid of implicit bias. I think it's a matter of making people cognizant of their biases and realize that to be conscious of them, to be conscious and thinking about, why I'm thinking adversely about this person, like, and trying just to be conscious of that. I'm not saying get rid of them. I'm just saying to understand them. And I think by understanding them, we become more open and we treat people more equally. And again, it's a difficult situation, and I'm not saying get rid of that. It's just going to get rid of those biases, but it's about becoming cognizant of them.
Okay, thank you. We have two more new people in the room that I'm going to need to get perspectives on. We'll start with Lady Dakini. What's your opinion on this? Are you a feminist, and do you think feminism is sexist?
I'm just here because I love being mansplained to.
I'll take that as a yes and a no, then, respectively.
I am not a feminist.
Oh, okay.
That was funny.
That was a very feminist answer. Alright. Why aren't you a feminist?
Why am I not a feminist?
Yeah, do you have
Because
any
I
issues
believe
with it?
because I believe in equality, and I don't think that feminism, as it stands, is about equality.
Okay.
I think it's about asserting and raising sex as privilege as it stands now in the arguments. And I don't think that, I think it's idealistic to think that you can have some kind of equality in a way that is based on your own personal values, because every single person in this room is going to have at least some deviation from their own values. And so if we did that, we would not all come to a conclusion. And so I think that, Mace, when you're talking about by the law, then that's a subset of things that we've agreed upon, regardless of our values, because it's something that everyone can at least follow and look to. And if that's created unequally, then everything's created unequally. So I just think that it's kind of silly. And do I think it's sexist? Well, I think that positing the question in that way, in and of itself, has a presumption built into it, first of all. And so I appreciate whoever decided to say it that way. But I think that second and third wave feminism wasn't about just gaining equality. And so I would say, on the flip side of that, that I'm a men's rights activist more than a feminist.
Okay, interesting. And would you call yourself an egalitarian?
I think that by the definition that you gave, yes.
Okay. Let's get Kapow in here. What do you think? Are you a feminist? Okay, Kapow's AFK. Bal Diablo, are you there? No. Alright, let's head on. Jason, do you have any... I suppose what I don't understand is why are you different to the other feminists that I've seen and spoken to? Like, you just don't seem like a feminist. Maybe feminists in Britain are just different to where you're from, but
maybe I'm not a feminist. I mean,
in Britain,
I call myself a feminist.
In Britain, the feminists are very man-hating and extreme, and you just seem like an egalitarian to me.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm kind of like a soft feminist. I don't know if that's maybe a weird term to use, but I mean, I think there are some feminists who are like, there is nothing a man can do that a woman can't do, and I don't necessarily agree with that, because I do think there is.
Yes, there is. There are many things.
I agree with you.
I don't understand, Jason, why you keep coming back to that. There's nothing that a woman, like vice versa. Like, I think did I misunderstand?
Yeah, I'm saying that I think that there are some feminists who believe that there is nothing that a woman can do anything that a man can do. And I'm saying I don't necessarily have that position, even though I feel like I am a feminist. I think that there are things that men can do that women can't, and there are things that women can do that men can't. But I still feel like women throughout many years have not had, it's not been an equal playing field for women in many areas. And I think that striving for that equality for women in like the job area, in in social circles, and like in many different facets, I think that that's what I consider myself a feminist. But I don't.
A question for that?
Yeah, please. Yeah, please.
How long do you think it's been in that? You're saying, can you put a time frame on how long you think it's been that way, like unequal?
Almost,
when you say that,
I would say I'm afraid to put a time limit on it, but for as long as human civilization has existed, women have not had up until like now, women aren't paid the same as men. Women don't have equal. That it is true. There are many studies that indicate that women get paid
Those
around.
studies are incorrect.
No, you've missed. Sorry, I think you may have misunderstood that slightly. The gender pay gap is an average. It's not talking about individual women being discriminated against.
Correct.
It's literally a median. Well, usually it's a medium. Sometimes it's a mean. Either way, it's an average. So it's talking about that group as a whole. It's not talking about individuals, so you can't assume discrimination on the back of that.
They actually took more data points, and when
it's still not
data
equal,
points, when they put in more data points, it made sense. But Kapow's back, I think, Mace.
Okay. Did you want to carry on talking about that point, or shall we move on to Kapow?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Kapow, are you a feminist? This is an interrogation. We need to know.
But I guess my original question
also, where's
was,
Rachel?
where is the stream?
Where's
the
stream? I'll tell you where the stream is if you tell me where Rachel is.
Where Rachel is?
It's a Batman joke. Don't worry about it. Stream's on YouTube.
Yeah, but I couldn't find it anywhere. Is it on Pangburn's channel?
It's Pangburn Offensive.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah.
Am I a feminist?
My show was demoted to the secondary channel for this week.
I don't know. I mean, as an artist, I definitely use feminist critique sometimes. Am I like, do I identify as a feminist? I don't know. Maybe like like first wave or something. Not like this not like it like I don't know.
Why is this
Probably
a difficult
not.
question for you?
Because there's so many factions.
Judith
of
Butler,
feminism.
like you're not into Judith Butler, Simone de Beauvoir, these cats. That's second and third
No,
wave.
not really. And then also like I have a history of being in the like some radical feminist movements, like the non-binary movement or whatever in my past. So I'm just like, I know different parts of it, but there's lots of different schools of thought in feminism. Like,
do you find this difficult to answer because you have some issues with feminism which you can't get over, or is it just you feel too ignorant on the topic?
No, I don't feel ignorant on the topic at all. I there's just some certain things that I disagree with. Like I don't think that it's I don't think it's the most like useful worldview, I guess, for solving issues. Like, it seems like it often eats itself.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But what was I supposed to argue you against if I'm supposed to be going against that?
My position is that feminism is sexist. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I think so, generally.
Sorry, I'll just
I think so generally. Like the feminism that I came from, like this was like a while ago, maybe like 7 years ago or something, or I just ended up being involved in it, not on purpose, but just through my own gender exploration journey. They were like, these feminists basically want to eradicate gender entirely. concept of gender. So, is that sexist? I don't know.
Well,
I guess it's erasure of some kind.
By my definition of sexism, it would be treating people differently under the on the basis of sex.
Yeah, and then these feminists would say that there's no way to there's no way to like sex is a binary, right? Or like they think it's somewhat socially constructed because of things like what is it called? Like intersex disorders and things. I'm not saying they're right, but
I would also add, I do think men's rights activism is also sexist. So perhaps me and you, lady, are going to have to hash that out in a future "Convince Me Otherwise" segment. Is a different topic, so we won't go over that.
How do you address the unique issues of the sexes?
Like, with egalitarianism, so make.
But if they're unique to that sex.
Literally, all I would do is make it so the law does not discriminate on the basis of gender, and then you have equality under the law, and that's all that needs to be done, as far as I'm concerned. If there are issues which are unique to specific genders because they're biological, like for example, men usually don't have to worry about, well, I say usually, men don't have to worry about childbirth. It's just not a man problem. That's like, I don't see why that's relevant when we're talking about law. I mean, men have the right to give birth. There's no reason why that should be illegal, but it's not going to happen.
There are certain people that aren't protected under that idea, like they are in Australia and India, having a third gender marker, under the law.
Well, I don't think the law should discriminate based on gender. So it doesn't matter if you think you're a man, woman, or something made up in between. Doesn't matter. If a law does not specify gender, then gender's irrelevant, and that's how it should be.
To answer that, just on the point that you were talking about being a men's rights activist, what that would look like in the flip is equality again, and equality by the law, meaning that, using your example of a man isn't getting pregnant, but I would say paternity leave should be equal. Because that's just how I see it. I think that men should be able to stay if they want. It's a choice. I think that it should be.
Sounds like he agrees, right?
I think that would eradicate this whole thing too, and it would go more to Jason's point, and the disparities in looking at the wage gaps differently would balance out, because some women don't choose to take the leave and some do, and some men wouldn't and some would. And so then I think that the wage gaps would look more similar.
I agree
think
with
they would
that.
equal.
I agree with that.
I have a question. Like, from what I understand, men's right activism doesn't come along with a worldview necessarily. They're just trying to bring up specific issues. Right?
Maybe so, but I think if you're focused on rights for a gender rather than rights for people, then I see that as sexist.
Well, that's the same thing as a charity focusing in on a specific thing that it wants to focus on and saying that that's not very charitable.
If there's a charity which only helps men or only helps women, then it's a sexist charity, yes. I don't think charity...
Well, there's nothing
necessary. That's about dogs is not...
Well, discriminating on the basis of species is not sexism. That's something else. Maybe you could call that xenophobia of some kind. I don't know.
Okay, but this is what I'm saying. So, like, if a guy, right, has a problem that only guys have due to biology,
and the group is dealing with that. Like, let's say, for instance, this is just an absolute extreme example, but guys go to space, they come back, their eyes are screwed. It's a known thing. We don't know why it doesn't affect women in the same way. They just happen to be immune to it for whatever reason. Guys come back from space, they need glasses. A charity that makes glasses for those guys isn't sexist.
Depends. If a woman went to that charity, would the charity turn her down just because she's a woman?
Well, no, because they would turn her
sexist.
down because she hasn't had eye damage due to being from space.
Okay, it's all about what they would do if the situation changed, and so if they just happen to be catering to men because they've never had a woman that needed their services, then that's fine. But if they're actually turning women down, or if a woman did eventually need their services and they turn them down, that's wrong.
Okay, let's say, actually, that's kind of a bad example. Let's say a guy got screwed over by the court system because it was inequitable, and an organization wishes to remedy that, so they're providing financial support for that. Would that be sexist in your eyes?
Sorry, could you reword that one?
So, it's well known that in the marital courts, the civil courts in the states, there are sometimes biases used by judges based on previous case law rather than the facts presented to them, and they just basically rubber stamp divorce papers through, and as a result, guys get screwed in that court system without anyone really looking at the facts. There are charities that are based around helping those men where that happens. Is that sexist?
Can I speak to that? Because I'm actually going through that right now. And what I will say is, because of that idea, it's caused a bias in the other direction. So recently, Jordan Peterson had someone on his channel who was in a similar situation. And I had it happen to me in the reverse. And I'm not going to go into details because it's presently happening. But when I started doing research, I found that when you go outside of lower socioeconomic categories and you start moving into middle, and upper class cases, it actually happens more in the reverse. And so I would say that the population is actually higher and there's actually more damage done, like to the point where, for example, like, you know, there's a lot of, I think I don't want to say more, but I'll let you guys speak on it.
Oh, okay. I was expecting more. Please carry on, Lexicon.
So anyways, apparently this is flipped now, which is both good and bad to see at the same time. At least courts are paying attention instead of ignoring this problem, even if they're not making the right choices. But that is the typical result. Would that group of people that have come together to form a charity to deal with these inequities be sexist if they're only focused on men because they only see it as a societal problem for men? Or do they actually need to, like, be presented with the female side of it where it is happening on the other side for them to have an opportunity to not be sexist? I'm saying, does it default to sexism? That's what I'm asking.
It sounds like they are sexist, yeah, because they're not campaigning for equality for people. They're campaigning just for men's rights. I don't like that. That is sexism as far as I'm concerned.
Interesting.
What's the name of the channel?
Sorry. I was just going to say, how do you...
I'm still trying to find the string.
Oh, right. How do you account for a bias without mentioning a bias?
All you can do is remove the bias from the law and then enforce the law.
Right, but if you want to change the bias, you have to state it. And by what you're saying, the logic would then present it as what you're saying just by mentioning it is sexist because you're advocating for one group. So I think there's an interim where it doesn't, right? Like if I say, I'm presently a men's rights activist in order to have equality in the area of staying home with a child after they're born. So maternity leave and paternity leave. In that regard, I would say women have maternity leave. Men, it's not widespread for paternity leave. I can't mention that disparity without mentioning men, and then I would be considered having a sexist argument, no? By your logic?
You can mention it, but it's just the wording that people tend to use. There's two ways you can frame it. You can say men need to be given more paternity leave, which is the sexist way of framing it, or you can say men and women both need to have the same parental leave, paternity/maternity leave. That's the non-sexist way of putting it. If you're just focusing on the men, then I'd say that's the sexist side of the coin.
Got it. So we agree. Yeah.
I don't know. I think men and women should have the same rights, and therefore should have the right to the same amount of leave when their child is born. But the thing is, it is a lot of. It's difficult for a small business to be potentially paying 2 members of staff who then aren't working for them. So I think the way around that would be make it so couples get 2 leave allocations, one's large and one is small, and then they can decide between them if the dad or the mum gets the bigger one. I think that would be the fairer way of doing it. Let couples decide who gets the larger leave and has most child responsibilities, because there may be some cases where the woman actually has the higher paying job, so she wants to be the one with the least leave so she can get back to work sooner.
Well, I mean, that doesn't really work across companies, though.
Sorry?
They would have to be working at the same company for that to be reasonable. You can't negotiate with a company you don't work for.
I mean, under the law, because I don't know how it works in America, but in the UK, men and women have a legal right to take paternity and maternity leave, but those 2 leaves they're a set amount of time. I think they should probably just make it where you've got long. They should just make it you've got long leave and you've got short leave, and only. One partner gets the long leave, one partner gets the short leave. Gender doesn't matter, they have to decide between them who gets it. I think that would be a fair compromise between giving them equal rights and also not screwing the economy too much. Because making employers pay for staff while they're not working is not great. It's something we need to avoid.
I don't think they even have leave in America like they do in Europe. Like if you're a permanent employee in the UK, you can get 25 days leave. I don't think Americans get that. I could be wrong.
It is not standardized. It's individual, and some companies offer it, others don't. The more higher you are in the socioeconomic area of work and job in terms of white collar, blue collar, the higher chances you have of that. It's not standardized at all. I can tell you that myself as a teacher, you had to save your days off, which you don't have many because of the way the vacations are structured with summers and things. So essentially, there are many jobs where women have 0 leave and actually will be fired under a different subset of rules that somehow go around what would be considered discriminatory practices.
How large of an impact is that? Are we seriously incentivizing the people we use to care for children to not have children?
I think the hammer on the head is most of these cases are settled by how much money can afford how many lawyers.
Yep, I would agree with that. And I would say to Lexicon, I would say that it is. And I think that there are many things in our society that are set up that way, so it's not just one, it's just another area like that.
That's fucked up.
It's sort of. So what keeps my clients from suing me is I have more money than they do.
Oh, that's just capitalism.
When
right
it
there.
when it comes to putting towards our legal team and things like that. So you don't mess with people that understand the law better than some of your legal teams, right? So it gets hard. But then if I have other people that are on the same level with me and they want to sue me, then it can get really tricky. And then it comes to a race of, do we have more money than you? Right? So if you have another firm come over into my firm and just has a ridiculous amount of money towards their legal team, I'm done. It's just it. It doesn't matter if what I did was right or wrong or whatever it may be. Like, will find a way to bury me just because they can.
As God intended. America.
Bombay, are you new to the discussion? Sorry, I can't remember when you came in.
Yes, I am. Yes.
Okay, let's get your opinion on this. Are you a feminist, and do you think feminism is sexist?
I am not a feminist.
Why are there no feminists in this Discord?
Sorry.
How many people have we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 11 people. And a couple of people have left, and not a single one of them so far has been. Well, one person was kind of a feminist, but not really. Like, we haven't had any.
I could be a bright spark and then ask you which form of feminism. First wave,
I was
wave,
hoping we could
wave.
get some crazy radical feminists in here to have a proper debate with, but I guess those are less common than I thought. I don't know.
I don't think a rational Discord like this or channel like this really invites many of those types of thinkers.
I'm pretty sure I have heard some of them. I think they just don't like my show. I think Dan and Nivik might be feminists. It would have been good to have hit them on here.
Nivik could be a good argumenter, but I don't think he's a feminist in the way you're looking for.
No. What about Dan?
Dan might be.
I mean, Dan's a communist, so he's got to be a feminist, surely.
Yeah, but Dan's also rational, and the type of feminism you're looking for isn't. Typically, the problem is typically with the type of third wave feminism, the more radical side of it, they're typically self-isolationist. It's be really hard to find one on a server this open.
Yeah, they create safe spaces for themselves.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, you don't find them in free speech communities.
Yeah, otherwise known as echo chambers, I would say. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And even amongst them, they fight in and amongst themselves because everything is so nuanced that there is no collective agreements. It's like and there's this intolerance to difference in general of ideas. And so
all of the discords that I was a part of, they kept like splitting into smaller groups, or like it's very incestuous. So I don't. Like, I'm still a part of a lot of them. They haven't necessarily kicked me out.
I would say that as a product of tribalism. Feminism is very much tribalistic movement, and within tribes, you're always going to have someone that says, you know what, this tribe doesn't perfectly reflect my values, so I'm going to create a new tribe. And then that's just going to keep happening over and over again, as long as people are in the tribalistic mindset.
Every idea is tribalistic.
No, I subscribe to individualist ideas. I don't see tribes, I see individuals.
Yeah, but you
probably took some work for that to happen.
1 second. You put yourself in a group of people that have the same ideals, and you have a tribe, which you're doing right now. So,
if your tribe includes everyone, it's not really much of a tribe.
No, a tribe is a group of, it's a group of things that have a common denominator. So whatever the common denominator is, you've got a tribe.
That's what I'm saying. And if your common denominator is you want all people to have the same common denominators, that's not a tribal thinking, because you're trying to make the same rules for absolutely everyone, not a group of rules for your group. It's not the same.
It's the same. You don't have to make rules specifically for your group to have a tribe. You just need to have a common denominator, and then you have a tribe. There's nothing wrong with it.
But if your common denominator is that everyone is human, that's It's a common denominator so common, it's not forming divisions. At that point, it's not about tribalism.
Yeah, but there is no group that whose common denominator is everyone is just human. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's called individualism.
Yeah, individualism.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's much more complicated than that.
Okay, well then you're not talking about me. I would describe myself as an individualist, which is why I.
Discord. Mace, you're in this Discord.
I don't see this Discord as like a tribe or anything. This is just a free speech Discord where we.
It's an intellectual. You can think of it as an intellectual.
But I'm okay with people in this Discord having different values to myself. It's not that's.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, but you can have different values in a tribe and still be part of the tribe. It's like it's not a problem.
No, in tribalism, it's like everyone in my tribe has to be the same as me. Otherwise, you're in a different tribe, and we exclude you.
No,
yeah, tribalism isn't exclusionary. That's the whole point of tribalism.
Yeah, but you're missing the point. It's not that simplistic, but you're excluding people who don't think like you, mate. So you would exclude people who don't subscribe to individualism.
How is he excluding people under? That doesn't make any sense.
What do you mean it doesn't?
I'm happy to speak.
You can't be an individualist and say other people can't abide by the rules of the individual, and that's ridiculous.
The ideology, right? If you say I believe in individualism, you're most likely to hang around those who believe the same things if you can find them, and there you have.
Not if you have an outgroup preference.
What?
Not if you have an outgroup preference. If your tribe is everyone and you view the world that way, when you interact with somebody that disagrees with you, you're going to be drawn to that person because you want to learn more about this individual.
Right, but your tribe isn't everyone. It's not, because not everyone holds the ideology of individualism. It's that simple. So, it's not a bad thing, though. I don't know why you guys are so upset about it.
I think we just semantically have different definitions of what we mean by tribalism.
Yeah. I think your definition of tribalism is so broad it dilutes the purpose of the word.
It doesn't actually. I think it touches the fundamental, the essence of what tribalism would be. If you were to establish tribalism of any, not particular to humans. If you were to sort of.
Well, I'm talking about tribalism as a mindset, so that is only particular to humans.
Even so, yes. Even so, you're still in it. But yeah, Dal wants to say something, I think.
Dal, did you have something? No.
Yeah, he doesn't know that. Right, but you're still you're still in it. Like you just can't unless you're a complete loner and you don't.
I am. I'm spending my Friday night on Discord.
Well, okay, maybe not. I shouldn't have said that. Unless you don't affiliate yourself to any sort of ideology strongly, unless you have no affiliations to any ideology strongly, unless you have that, then you can say, I'm not really part of any tribe.
Yeah, I am not loyal to any particular ideology. I just have my own opinions on things.
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
Yeah,
what about the Queen? God save the Queen.
No.
But
I'm gonna say fuck the Queen. You can decide what that means to you. I view okay. This is how I view tribalism. Just so maybe Elle, you can correct me on what I'm thinking, and maybe I'm wrong about the term. But I view it as a line being drawn by the individual about the group dynamics around him, so that way he is surrounding himself or herself with individuals who think alike for the purpose of survival. And whether that survival is social or fighting a tiger doesn't matter.
Okay. The line being drawn, does it have to be explicit?
I view it as needing to be separatory, negative in preference.
Yeah, that doesn't matter right now. So when you say the line is to be is drawn, is it an explicit thing? Is it stated? This is what we are. This is our modus of operating. It's
Yes.
like it doesn't have to be
Yeah,
explicit.
explicit. Absolutely explicit.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be. I think implicitly also counts. Like you don't like you can for example, if you let's see what's the best thing. If you went to an IT convention, right? So these are the humans that have a particular interest in IT of any kind. You don't explicitly say we are the IT guys and you don't say that, but you're in a sense, you could say you're part of a tribe of some sort. Now it's not the kind of the negative, type of tribe where you would kill for IT or you would do this for IT. But in a sense, there is a common denominator that brings you together, and once you have that, you have a tribe. It's that simple.
I would say a group dynamic doesn't necessarily be tribalist. So the IT group that doesn't say we are the IT group, the best group ever, that isn't a tribalistic mentality or a tribalistic tendency. That is a group of people that have their own, like, I guess the difference is are you coming together because you have shared interest, or are you coming together because your shared interest makes you stronger as a group?
You can't have one without the other.
No, you can.
No, you can't.
Furries gain no strength by having a convention. It makes them easier to bomb. They're coming together because they have a shared interest, not because it makes the group stronger.
Yeah, right, but...
To be honest, I think this is all irrelevant. When I'm talking about the tribalistic mindset, I'm talking about people who see the world in terms of tribes. I'm not talking about actual groups of people. I'm talking about, so for me, I see two people, I just see two people. A tribalistic version of me would see, oh, okay, that person's in my tribe, that person, they're in a different tribe, they're an enemy. Like,
I don't think, you see, Mace, I don't think that's even
people
possible.
a tribe?
I don't even think that's possible because, Dow's spoken again. I'm just going to say this quickly, Dow. I don't even think that's possible again because when you look at things in the world, you categorize them. When you look at a table, you say this is in the category of things that you can write on. When you look at things, you categorize them, subconsciously or consciously. I don't think that makes you tribalistic for even doing that. I think it's how you operate in the world. So how do you but Dow wants to say something. So
I just wanted to ask, could you consider all persons, like if you're going to be an egalitarian and say all people are treated equally, doesn't that create a tribe out of all people, whoever you define as a person? So like a mouse would be included, so you're still making a tribe?
I mean, maybe you could describe it like that. I don't think it really matters, does it? If everyone is in the tribe or if there is no tribe, is there a difference?
Yeah, but traditionally that's been the tribalistic thing to do, is to point out that some things aren't people and thus don't get to be in my tribe.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, I don't see the world in terms of tribes. I just see individuals.
What about countries, though? Like countries.
What about?
I don't think you do that.
Aren't they tribes? Aren't countries tribes? Like, wouldn't you describe someone as like an attack? Like you're subject to the crown. In fact.
Again.
Indeed.
I'm not saying tribes don't exist. Tribes exist. I'm just saying I don't see the world through that lens.
I think you do, though. I don't think you could operate if you didn't. Like, it's impossible. Like, you can't. Like like your brain is like it's like an operating system. You have to categorize things.
I don't know about that, Al. Like, okay,
don't get me wrong.
I make jokes all the time about hating French Canadians, but
Yeah.
that's all it ever is. It's banter. It's not real. I don't actually hate French Canadians.
See, like, that's different.
But you actually do pay taxes.
For a black guy, no, I actually kind of don't. But for a black guy to scare the shit out of me, he has to walk down the road with a machete. And I've been robbed only by black people, yet I don't hold a bias against them.
Right.
You don't. You don't need. There are people who don't view the world through tribalistic tendencies. They just don't. They see people and they address them individualistically of how they see them. And I get that you can say that you're going to have a bias based on previous experience every time you do that analysis, but you don't need to look at it from a perspective of tribe. In the same way, if I see an Asian dude walking with a machete, I'm gonna be like, oh shit, that dude has a machete. Like, there's no need to see a person and judge them in a tribalistic sense. Like, that's
different. That's different, though. I'm not saying you judge them. What I'm saying is, you just said it. When I see a black guy, what is that? That is a person with a certain type of phenotype in the physiology. Right. So you've categorized them with that statement.
Sure,
right?
but that doesn't make them separate from me in any way.
That doesn't. That's not even. That's
That's what I'm saying. Like, a tribe, for it to be a tribal response to seeing a black guy and saying, "Oh, he's black," that needs to make that dividing line. You're not just making a decision about an observation. You're making an us versus them dynamic by pointing that out.
Oh, right. Okay. I think I should use, in that case, I should probably use the word category, maybe. But I think it's all. I think it's the same. But sure, if we.
It's a minor difference. That's the way I see the word tribalism.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
You have a problem with Canadians.
Sorry, can we just let Lady get in there?
I think what you guys are saying is two different things. I think you're saying an individualist is using their worldview to create that belief system and to orient themselves in the world that way. And then the argument against it is in regards to implicit biases and unconscious reactions to things. And I don't think that you can say that people construct their worldview from their unconscious biases. But so I think that's where the two things are not aligning. So if you're having those two conversations, they're two different things. So I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not talking about unconscious biases. All I'm saying is, if you say you're an individualist and you come together, say a room that's filled with like-minded people, so other type of individualist, you have a tribe-like dynamic. Now, just one second, you don't have to hate other non-individualists, or you don't have to have hostile feelings towards other non-individualists for you to be a tribe.
You would have to be exclusionary.
No, not really.
Well,
you have to be.
That's not
right,
tribalism, then, if you're not excluding.
Okay, mate. Right. If you would have to be exclusionary, to non-individualist, which I think you are really. Not you personally. I think you in plural. Not you personally.
Me in
I think you would have. I think you are implicitly right. But if you go into a room, right, and the room is filled with individualist, like-minded people, you wouldn't go into a room with non-individualist, right? Or you would, but you wouldn't go into a room to talk about ideas. Like, well, I suppose I'm not simplifying this well enough. You wouldn't go into a room to talk about. Maybe you would. I'm confusing myself here, actually. Yeah, I'm confusing.
I think we've already got to the bottom of it. As you said earlier, you're talking about categories, so we're just talking about different things, really.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Bombay, did you have something you wanted to get in with?
I was going to say something, but I've forgotten, lost interest, sorry.
Oh, okay.
So, Mace, do you think you're part of any tribe at all? Like, in reality, I guess?
Maybe, but I don't see the world through that
you
lens.
You're part of a tribe. You know what tribe you are. Mace, you know your tribe.
Like, you have a citizenship, bro.
Yeah.
You cannot go across the border.
You're part of the tribe.
Legally. You're part of a legal system. That's a tribe.
Okay,
sure. That's a tribe. Egalitarianism.
Sure.
Okay,
So I'm part of a tribe. That just doesn't... I don't think about that when I'm thinking about people. When I think about people, I don't think about their tribe. It doesn't occur to me.
You're part of the political tribe that views BLM as being racist against whites, remember? That's your tribe. Remember that.
Okay.
I don't know, I think everyone does that, honestly. But sure.
One last ditch effort. Is there any... Actually, you know what? When I first went around, I just asked people if they were feminists, and when they said no, I assumed they thought feminism was sexist, but that may not actually be the case. Is there anyone here who isn't a feminist, but would still disagree with my claim that feminism is sexist?
I think you're confusing like sexism with discrimination. Like,
how are they different?
There's sex-based discrimination, and then there's just sexism. You can benefit only men if there's like only a man's problem, like, and it doesn't discriminate against women.
I would say sexism includes.
But if like there's a problem, if there's a problem with both men and women, and you only like if you discriminate against the women, like you don't let the women get help if they need it, that's discrimination. That's sexist discrimination.
Yeah.
I think there's a little difference there.
Would
a subtle difference.
Would you agree with me that feminism is only there to support women?
Yes, yeah, that's...
And is that not discrimination on the basis of gender?
I don't know, because I think they're only trying to help women. Like, men don't have those issues, I guess. So they're not really discriminating against men by helping women with women's issues.
One of their primary issues is pay. Fair pay, and some men are not paid fairly for their work. So that is an issue that affects both genders. That's not a gendered issue.
But it goes. That's one thing. There are other things within there that they discuss as well, which you may or may not accept. They might discuss. One I remember I was on one server, and one lady who was a feminist brought up an issue, and she talked about the issue of rape and how it's dealt within the judicial system. How
rape's another example, because a man can be forced to have sex against his will, but
that wasn't what she meant. What she was talking about was the cases, especially in the UK, where the majority of cases that do go to court, they're very small convictions, criminal convictions, to the extent that the police force has had to apologize, and politicians have had to address the fact that yes, that is a problem. That for whatever reason, and then you had the Sarah Everhard case with the police guy who did what he did to that woman, and loads of women were protesting in the UK. She was saying that was part of the oppression of women, the systemic oppression of women within the judicial system, where a lot of rape cases don't get convictions. So if they were then pushing to make sure that rape cases did get convictions, would you then think that they were being prejudiced against men? I'm curious, Mace.
Sorry, what was the question?
So basically, this feminist that I spoke to said that part of the problem was that they had a systemic prejudice against them within the judicial system. When it came to rape, most cases didn't get convictions. And that wasn't like a conspiracy theory, because within the UK, that has been actually officially accepted as real within the police force, and politicians have spoken about it. And they've said they have to address that why is it that so many rape cases go to court, but the convictions are very, very low, and the perpetrators, mainly men, are not found guilty.
Surely it's only men that are perpetrators. I don't know if the definition's the same. I'm not even sure what country you're in actually, but
same as you.
When I learned about the definition, must have been about 6, 7, 8 years ago, I was told the definition of rape in my country is penile penetration without consent, meaning that a woman physically cannot commit rape under the law.
Yeah. So
surely it's 100% men committing rape, because if a woman has sex with a man against his will, that's only classed as sexual assaults.
No, but you forget. But I'm not even talking about the cases of men raping men. I'm not even talking about that. I was talking primarily about women and feminism. And within feminism, they saw the judicial system as being prejudiced against them. And one of the things they pointed out was the low rape convictions. Women have been assaulted, and there's nothing being done to address that. That was one of the things within feminism. So it didn't just deal with pay, because you mentioned pay earlier. I'm just pointing out that it also encompasses other things, and one of those things is rape. And the lack of how
I agree. I find a lot of things that feminism campaigns for are issues that are not specifically just female issues, but they only care about the female side of the issue. They don't care if a man's affected by the same issue they're campaigning for. They don't care. They're like, no, you're part of the patriarchy, don't want to hear what you have to say.
But then where does it end then with your form of skepticism? So, for instance, like in the UK, if disabled people in wheelchairs are petitioning to have more buildings provide them with wheelchair access, to build more toilets for them to use, they're doing it, they're coming from the perspective of looking out for themselves, disabled people. Would you then find them as being somehow using some form of ism to, I don't know, oppress other people because they were trying to benefit themselves?
Depends. Do they think that only disabled people should be allowed to use this these new building additions? If yes, then that's ableism against able-bodied people. But if they think everyone should be allowed to use these lifts that they're implementing, then sure, that's fine.
Because the toilets, I know the toilets are only meant to be used by disabled people.
No, anyone can use a disabled toilet. I use them all the time.
Yeah, but I know able-bodied people go in them as well, but I don't think they're supposed to.
Nah, I'm pretty sure it's fine. Anyone can use them.
Okay.
They wouldn't be able to restrict that anyway. Like,
yeah, they can't.
And there would be discrimination.
Yeah, because you don't know if someone's disabled or not.
Unless they come out of the toilet and someone's in a wheelchair waiting to use it, and the person's an able-bodied person. It's like, why did you use that?
Yeah, but
toilet?
not all disabilities are visible. There might be something wrong with them that's hidden under their clothes.
Or, neurological, or doesn't manifest all the time, or.
There's an episode about that on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Curb Your Enthusiasm. Brilliant TV show.
Bombay, do you think that those issues could be solved without feminism? Like, feminism doesn't have to be the vehicle that solves those issues.
No, true.
Honestly, if you're appealing to a wider group of people, then you would think that would be easier to get it done.
True, but I think feminism is the reaction. Feminism is the reaction because, as you say, feminism shouldn't have to exist to deal with those issues. But because those issues are not being... Well, people would say, if we live in a good society, those things should be resolved anyway. But because they're not being addressed, it has then led to feminism. It's like in the UK, they had the suffragette movement, which were women who wanted the right to vote. And it was only because of them doing that, protesting, even sacrificing their lives, that they were suddenly given the right to vote. So they shouldn't have had to do that.
I think they would have still got the right to vote even without the suffragettes.
Yeah, but that didn't happen historically, though. The suffragettes had to come about before...
I don't think they did have to come about. I actually think more men were in favour of giving them the vote than women at that time.
I think that's the case in the US, too.
Historically, that's not what happened, though. I mean, historically, they had to protest the way they did.
Well, you weren't there, so you can't know that. It'd be good if we could go back and do a poll and prove once and for all what percentage of men and what percentage of women were in favour of the female vote. That'd be great, but I'm not aware of any such poll that was done.
Well, a lot of the female suffragettes were against voting because they assumed things like
they were going to have to be drafted.
They would have to participate in the draft and all sorts of other things that men do that are men's jobs and they didn't want to do. But turns out they got to vote and they didn't get to draft, so...
No, but they were used for the war effort in different ways. They were used for the war effort differently.
Okay. That's differently than being drafted, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, well, that I think that was down to men back then. Men wouldn't have...
Exactly. Equal, is it?
But who had no? The aim was to
Doolittle,
achieve
you sound
equality.
really bitter about this.
The aim was to achieve
No, I'm
equality.
not. No, I'm just okay. Well, we're talking about feminism, and feminism means equality. So, if you're gonna say equality,
Well, that's
bitches,
that's
you
my
better
issue with
start
it.
signing up for the draft.
I don't think it is about equality. I think it's about women's rights, which is why
the right to
why
be
they weren't
drafted?
asking for the
Like,
draft.
okay, well,
no, when they
every-
want women's
every
rights,
right
they
has-
just want good things. They don't
right
want bad
has a
things.
corresponding duty.
What-
They
what's
want
up?
the fucking rights, but not the duties.
Sorry, don't you live in a country where women
That's what I wanted to add.
women are in the military and they can fight? You already live in that country, so they do have that equality.
Women are in the military and they can fight.
Yeah, so
Is different than most of the people in the military are men. Actually, it's 90% or so, and most of the women that are in the military don't fight. Even when fighting is occurring, they don't,
why is that?
because they have jobs that are not on the front lines. Even if they are on the front lines, they still don't fight.
Why is who's stopping them from fighting it in America?
Themselves.
Oh, so they're the ones saying they don't want to fight.
Well,
It
women
may be useful in
generally
other ways.
women generally don't join the military. 90% of the people in the military are men, and when there is a fight, guess who's not there most of the time?
I don't know. You're saying the women choose not to.
Women
Okay.
aren't there in almost all cases. You look at any battalion on the front lines. What percentage of the people there are women? Is it 1% or 2%? Is it 5%? Like, it's less than 10.
So I'm just trying to get from you. So
where's the
you're saying that even though they're in the military, they are the ones who are deciding not to fight. They're not being stopped. You're saying that they choose not to fight. Just to confirm what you're saying. Is that what you're saying?
It's less than 1%.
I'm not making any attempt to decide to state who's making the decision. Like,
Are you drunk, bro?
There are no women.
It might be a little bit drunk, but like, okay, here's the thing. Like, women, like, look at the Navy. Like, the Navy's all volunteer service. Like, 9 out of 10 people in the Navy are men.
I just looked it up. There are no women on the front lines. The closest they get to front lines is field artillery.
Sorry, guys. I think Kapow's been trying to patiently speak, and we've been talking over him. I could be wrong.
Oh, I can wait. I'm very patient.
Show me the women on the front lines, and we'll talk about equality.
Oh, so I see. Okay, I see what you mean. So would your equality, your form of equality, relate to, say, if a man got in a boxing ring, then a woman would get in with him and they both fight? Equality, that type of equality. Is that what you're going for?
No, I don't believe in it. I don't believe that equality even exists. I don't think it's a thing.
I don't think so.
Equality's not even a
I had
thing.
a question for Mace.
Go ahead.
So my question was, if, like, as an individualist, like, what do they think about responsibility? Like,
I support individual responsibility.
Okay. So the person gets to. Does the person choose?
Did Trav
like,
just
how much
pull
responsibility?
one of my show guests?
Yes,
How
he did.
rude! That is rude. Okay, sorry. Carry on, Capel.
Does the individual choose how much responsibility they want to take on? Like, that's why I'm trying to, like, think about how this works into sexism.
Yeah, typically.
And feminism, and feminism, because, like, a lot of times you guys were talking earlier about like kind of cherry picking, or not cherry. That's not the right word, but like choosing when a person wants to be responsible and when they don't. Like things like, you know,
typically
or
when
something,
it comes
a draft or something like that, or yeah.
typically when it comes to the military, you meet their standard. They don't. Yeah.
That's not the only thing. The reason I ask that is because a lot of times I find, within feminism, people want to create like exceptions for responsibility, but they want to have like when someone wants like certain freedoms, but they don't want necessarily like the consequences of those freedoms, you know.
I'm afraid I don't understand the question.
Could you give an example of that? The not wanting the consequence.
I don't think.
While you think about that, I'm just going to ask Metalworks. Metalworks, are you a feminist, and do you think feminism is sexist?
Oh, can you hear me? All right. I was one. I'm more egalitarian now. I don't have a complete problem.
Not a single.
Well, I don't have a problem with these type of identity type movements. You know, when they are under oppression, because I think that's when they're best. That's the best time to have them. But they have a short shelf life.
I don't care. I don't care if women are being oppressed. They should still fight for equal rights for everyone. They shouldn't just be fighting for women's rights.
I understand, but what motivates them more? And whatever works at that time, I prefer to use that.
In the short term, but I don't think it's helpful
because
it has long-term repercussions, which we're seeing now.
No, that's the problem with these types of movements. They have a short shelf life because once they achieve everything they want, then they go from wanting equality under the law versus equality under culture and other aspects, and that's when things get really, really weird, and they start different groups start forming. You know, you have the TERFs and the different types of feminism and stuff, and it starts fragmenting. They all want certain things. It becomes a movement that doesn't have a purpose anymore, or tries to find it, and that's bad. Again, I would like to go back to something more egalitarian, but I feel like the reason these movements happen is because they motivate people more. I don't think you can get people motivated under an egalitarian movement. Maybe you could. It just sounds like it would take more work. You know, there'd be more effort to put into it. So.
You were saying that you believe that they should be fighting for everyone? Mace?
Well, no.
No, not you. Sorry, Laura. What Mace was saying.
Let's say men were being oppressed. I would not want to support men's rights activism. I would want to support egalitarian activism. Even though my gender's being oppressed, I would want to support a group who wants equality for everyone, not just men's rights.
And do you think
that reminds me of what I was trying to say earlier. It's like wanting like special, some sort of special protections or something like that. Like if people want everyone to have the same rights, then they how do you deal with having like some sort of special protections, or
Keep that question in mind. I just want to make sure I've addressed Bombay's question.
Sure. Sorry.
So I was just going to say that historically, will you be able to agree that at one point feminism wasn't about having safe spaces for one group, it was having equality for both of the sexes?
I mean, I wasn't there in the 1920s and 40s.
Oh, come on, you can read a history book or watch a documentary.
I wasn't finished. From the literature that I've seen, it seems that they wanted to promote women's rights because women had less rights than men. And maybe in the short term that's a good goal, but I think that's not helpful really. It would be more helpful just to promote equal rights in general, because the long-term disadvantage is that if you promote rights for one group of people, eventually they're going to catch up, and if you keep promoting those rights, they're going to overtake.
Yeah.
But what if the group who already has rights doesn't want the group that doesn't have rights to have rights?
That's fine. That the people that don't want equality won't be part of the egalitarian movement.
But they're the ones in power, though.
Are they?
So if you have a situation where one gender,
that's a different issue, but I disagree with you on that as well, because...
So what, if we went back, 500 years, you wouldn't think, or 1,000 years, you wouldn't think that one gender might have, in one particular civilization, would have had more rights than the other gender?
I have no idea. I have no idea what the laws were like 500 years ago. I couldn't.
They are very widely different throughout time and shit. From what I remember, what my mom told me, because she grew up in the 70s, women, they weren't really treated too fairly in like the workplace and stuff like that. So, and they did recognize the more kookier sides of like the hippie movement and the feminist movement, and people, kind of ignored them or made fun of them. And they mostly did focus on just trying to get women equal to men. But like I said, it's a short shelf life. Those feminists eventually move on and don't really need to be feminists anymore, and then other ones come in that are more radical, taking their place. And like I said earlier, they start looking for things to keep their movement going because they have everything they want. So now they need to find other stuff to keep moving on. And their whole ideology changes, and again, it splinters and stuff. It happens all the time with these types of groups.
So are you then confirming that in 2022, there are no gender issues, that women they have the same rights as men?
There are still issues that both genders still experience, but at this point in America, they are very much equal under the law. And I think what they should be pursuing now is more egalitarian fixes to these problems, more egalitarian approach. Because right now, for some strange reason, America, there's two. I need to do more research on it, but it looks like there's two weird things affecting the two genders. Men are least likely to get their kids in child custody cases. They don't get them as often as mothers. And women have a hard time getting sexual harassment, like sexual assault cases, to stick. And
that men would have a hard time getting sexual assault cases to stick too. I think
I'm being dead serious in America.
Sexual assault is just a difficult thing to prove in general.
What actually happened, from what I've looked, I'll need to look more into this, but from a couple of articles that I read, it looks like for some reason these naive judges, they're not doing anything malicious. They're going by older cases and going by the precedent set by older cases. But these cases are so old and the culture is so different from then, they really shouldn't be using them. And these are cases where like the guys were like really like too handsy, or they kissed a woman that didn't want to be kissed, and they're getting off almost scot-free. And I'm like, no, judge, old judge, please, no. Don't use old cases that set precedent. Rethink this. So those are the cases for the women that seem to be, they're just having a hard time getting done.
Do you think that men have an easier time in court when they have a sexual assault case? No. Okay.
No, I don't know about that. But I do know, like I said earlier, that they have a hard time securing their kids in child court. That's another big problem.
I think the reality of it is that it has to do more with whoever makes the allegations first, because they have to. The burden of proof in family court isn't the same as any other court in America. So the judge only has to believe 51% one way or the other, and they don't actually need any genuine proof. And so it's really, really difficult. And so like a sexual assault case wouldn't be handled in family court, it would be handled in criminal court, where the burden of proof is so high that a lot of the cases don't go through because it's a protection for false incrimination. Whereas in family court, there are much more biases. And so to answer your question about why there are more cases where men have lost their children, my answer to that is that more women make false allegations at the start. But now that that's known, if the man makes a false allegation first, he has and is protected under the same jurisprudence. So the problem there is it is equal.
Okay.
It is equal.
Bruce, I think you're new to the discussion. Are you a feminist?
No.
God, there's never going to be a feminist in here. I think we're just going to have to end this one. After
I mean,
Bruce's
it depends on what that
perspective.
means. I would say, like, possibly, depending on what that means.
Do you think feminism is sexist?
The current definition, sure, yeah.
I agree. Okay, well, we'll end that
By,
one here.
by setting it up this way, Mace, you're basically setting somebody up to say yes and then say, haha, you're a sexist. So
Exactly. Yeah, that's what he's trying to do. I believe so too.
I mean, I'm fine being called a sexist, but I don't really care what I'm called by people that have deranged definitions, so call me whatever you want.
Wait, no, sorry, Bruce, you said feminism was sexist, or did I mishear you? Sorry.
Yeah, the current definition, or the way that it's currently portrayed.
I agree with you. I also think it's sexist, but I'm not trying to say anyone in this room is sexist. My critique is of feminism. Okay, thank you.
I don't think you listened to what Bruce said. He said the current definition. So that means that historically in the past there was a definition that wasn't sexist.
Yeah, I might have been considered a feminist at some point in history, but not now.
I would agree with that because the first wave of feminism, right, was about equal rights. And
it was about women's rights.
I would argue that it was about equal rights, and I would say that it wasn't about equal outcomes necessarily, because when we had the First World War, women did not expect to be on the front line, but they did expect to not just sit in their cushy homes. And so there was a difference, and women stepped up in a beautiful way that I don't think feminists of today would agree with. And I think that
they don't.
That's
why
difference.
They're always splintering.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Like,
it's changed.
Second wave feminism is where I think started to split, right?
And third wave feminism with women like Judith Butler, who really, who really pushed that, right? She genuinely, if you look at what she's saying, it's really, really radicalized. And so any movement can be radicalized. So what you're looking for, Mace, is a radicalized feminist, just like, you're not saying, oh, I'm looking for a liberal or a Republican or an egalitarian. You're looking for a radical. So it's going to need that qualifier in front of it, because that's why I push back and say I'm a men's rights activist, because it's like, in order to create balance and cognitive dissonance, it's not so much that, it's that I want equal rights. And so that's what I'm saying.
Perhaps that version of feminism is radical where you're from, but where I'm from, it's actually the normal feminist.
No, I think you're
right. So you're saying that.
No.
I work with a lot of feminists.
No, I think feminism is a lot more complicated than you're making it. You're just trying to paint them as one monolith that think and do things in a particular way, and it's much more complicated.
About 99% of the people in my office, if not 100, excluding myself, let's say 99%, would describe themselves. They would describe themselves as feminists, and they are the typical kind that you think of when you see them in media. They literally think that women should have different rights to men, and they should have preferential treatments.
Yeah, they're louder.
Yeah, to make
and
up for
like
they're trying to Well, yeah, and there's like an idea of making up for like past injustice. So there's like make good that they'd like to see, and so it's not even equal protection under the law or equal rights under the law. It's like we need to rectify the scale or weight it in a certain direction.
It's literally just a concern. It's just a concern for women's rights.
Their argument is if the pendulum was swung so far one way for so long, their argument is basically fuck you. Now you have to deal with oppression that we dealt with, and that's the platforming that modern fourth wave feminism is running on, of the idea that, okay, we've let you colonialist, patriarchal, blah, 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 take the reins for however long, and now sit down, shut up, and let us have our chance, and let us prove to you that we can do it better. And I do not subscribe to that ideology.
But Mace, don't you think that like a movement like that changes and evolves, and like I said earlier, that's what happened to our feminism in America. It changed.
Maybe.
That's why you went different ways.
I don't really see.
Because I want to know. I want to know what feminism was like early in Britain. What early feminism was like in Britain. Was it similar to ours?
I've said already, it's possible that feminism was different before I was born, but all I have to go on is what I've seen since I've been around and I've been aware of it. It hasn't changed as far as I've been aware of it. As long as I've been aware of it, and the literature I've seen of it in the past seems to be similar to how it is now. So I don't have I don't have a lot of reason to assume it was different in the past.
There's feminist literature still out there from the past. It's not like it doesn't exist.
You can read some old feminist work. One of the interesting things to me that seems strange is today's feminists, if you were to do a litmus test, or not even a litmus test, like a straw poll, a large number of them are lesbians, which to me is really strange. Yeah. So like third wave feminism and fourth wave feminism, they've gotten to the extreme of like, they hate men. They're not even looking for rights under themselves. They hate men, and they're lesbians. Many of them go to like a third wave feminist, a current feminist rally, or go to like like maybe not majority, but the percentage of them that are lesbians is really high. Whereas before, that was not the case at all. They were looking for equal rights under the law. It's a much different thing, that hating men and only being with women because you hate men is a totally different agenda than saying I wish to have equal protection under the law. That's where we are now. It's pretty.
Did you hear earlier when I brought up the not like in the fourth wave feminism about people that want to eradicate gender so that.
But is that really feminism though? That's just sort of a
That's not feminism.
It's still it's still a part of feminism because
they can choose that, I guess.
It's part of the more tribal ideas.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I can see. I mean, removing gender has a. I could see the modern feminists doing that so that they could quote unquote achieve their goals by totally removing gender.
That's what the non-binary thing is.
Right.
That's not removing gender. That's creating more genders. That's just making more problems.
I mean, I guess it depends on who you talk to in that world, right? It's definitely weird. Yeah. Removing gender entirely and saying like we're not talking about gender here. We're only talking about genitalia. In science, that's kind of what I've heard from real modernists. Right, they're like we're okay with doing scientific or medical work based in genitalia or organs. We're not okay with like gender stereotypes and all the terms associated with those being applied to society. Like that's what they'd like to eradicate, which is really strange.
That's what I was trying to say earlier, Mace. Like identity-based movements like these evolve and change. So, I mean, I don't know how it was like in your country, and I don't know if you know anybody that grew up in those other times, like. You have like a parent or something like that, you should ask them. Like that's why I asked my mom, like, what was feminism like in the 70s? She told me it was just, about equality in the workplace and being treated more fairly. The feminists I heard from there were they sounded like normal, rational people, and occasionally you had the kooky ones, but they weren't mainstream. They were the kooky ones.
Metalworks, there is a wealth of information on the feminists, how they behaved in the 50s, the 40s, the 30s. There is a wealth of information how they behaved in the UK. Mace does not have any excuses. So,
from what I've seen of how they behaved, it was similar to now. They were doing illegal things and they were very extreme.
Well, I mean, if it's illegal to do, depending on what do you mean by doing illegal things? Are you talking about like suffrage movement or
like I think one example, if I remember off the top of my head, they like chained themselves to some statues and actually caused damage to one of the statues in the Parliament building or
Those
something.
poor statues.
So
Yeah, I mean, people are
vandalism.
going to do things like that in any revolt, revolution, or otherwise. Like, that's how they gain attention and support. I mean, sure, I guess it's illegal, but that doesn't really change what they were
Yeah,
after.
that's very different from what I'm thinking.
I mean, that is a thing that
Dangerous,
happened. You're right. You're right
Yeah.
about that. They did that. Sure.
But there was a
For all
reason why
intents
they
and
did that.
purposes,
They
I'm
did
sure.
that right.
I'm sure England or the UK and the US are very similar in their feminist waves.
I don't know. Maybe they're different. I don't know.
I doubt it.
I mean, didn't like the UK like really had hard censorship on radio? They were. I know that's a little bit different, but you know, these are two very
I
different
think.
countries.
Yeah.
Too.
I think you
Can I
can
say
link
something?
third wave. Oh, go ahead, Kapal. Sorry.
There are still feminists from the 60s, like Camille Paglia and Christina Hoff Sommers, that are out there who are continue to bring like the first wave feminism
Yeah, they get called
perspective
TERFs.
on today. It's
Yeah.
not like it's not all feminists are the same. So
Yeah, sure.
Thank you for mentioning that. I
Fragmented
wonder if Mace was listening to what Kapow just said. Did you hear that, Mace, or do you still want to just tar them all with the same brush?
Not all feminists are the same, sure. I'm not talking about feminists, I'm talking about feminism.
There is a difference, though, because I think Mace is pointing out that he's not saying those feminists don't exist, right? So we're sitting here saying, okay, those feminists exist. But like if you take Rosie Posey, who is very British and very vocal, and put up ads around the UK with the dictionary definition of woman, and she was chastised, she was arrested in her home, she was, and called a transphobe for trying to advocate for women's spaces and for women in general. And she felt like, and I would say that I'm not taking a position, but what I would say is that she was not given equality in terms of speaking, free speech, and her message was not heard. And she would consider herself a feminist in that way. And when she gets tongue-in-cheek, she'll say the same thing, like, I'm a men's rights activist, because she's trying to say, if feminism is swinging to the side of, now it's our turn to take over, that would be what is equal, then...
Right.
Well, it's not just
there's
that.
a bizarre...
Well, and
She's also
Camille...
defending... sorry, too. Just give me a second. It sounds
That's
like she's
fine.
also defending feminism from this new transgender movement. It's trying to change the meaning of woman and stuff, and these women aren't too comfortable with that. So,
Well, they were
kinda
just
understand where she's
canceling
coming
her.
from.
She
Yeah.
really isn't
She wasn't necessarily against them.
No, but she's not comfortable with them being,
Well,
treated
there's people that are feminists that are proud of being a woman and wish to, like Title IX, right, or something like that. Like, we would like to have sports that cater to women, that have the same opportunity for women to go and be excellent as a woman. Is much different than saying we need to just remove women or remove these spaces for women specifically and have all genders in the same places and ignore all differences between the sexes, which is like a more modern thing. But like,
Yeah, but-
and I would
It's
say
not
that that's
typically
a
men
terrible
that
idea,
are.
but
It's not typically men that are trying to get into women's spaces like that. That's like part of like feminism eating itself with the
We're trying to appeal to
pro-trans
transgender
feminists
stuff.
and people otherwise. Like,
Well,
I
I
can
think,
think of
like-
an issue that where maybe could with like homeless shelters or something, but
what do you mean by homeless shelters?
because a lot of them don't allow men.
Oh, right, yeah, women have children and pregnancy or whatever, yeah. They're more vulnerable on the street.
Women
Yeah.
and children's shelters. They literally call them that here in Canada.
Yeah, they do get more benefits typically if you're pregnant as well, things like that.
There's barely any men's homeless shelters.
Yeah.
specifically.
I mean, it's tough. Well, I would say I think a lot of the third wave, and if you want to say fourth wave feminism, really gains traction post availability of cheap and affordable, readily available birth control. That's really what changes everything.
Why do people not use the term fourth wave? Is it because what is considered the fourth wave is something that was created on the internet and not necessarily academic or something?
Yeah, I don't know if fourth wave is accepted in like academia.
Fourth wave is absolutely academically based. It started with Judith Butler. You can look her up. She still teaches, I believe, at UC Berkeley. And if you look up some of the radicalized things that she has said in publications and the sheer number of citations that those have in order to prop up other radicalized ideas, I think it will be apparent very quickly.
Well, I mean, I know I've seen intersectionality discussed. Is that really fourth wave feminism, though?
Yes.
Interesting.
Well, that comes from, that's before that.
Yeah, I didn't realize fourth wave feminism was actually like a new category, academically.
I don't think it's very old. Maybe 20 years ago.
Sorry, what's the distinction between third wave and fourth wave? I'm a little illiterate in this matter.
Incorporating the transgender movement, as well as the idea of positing not equality, but the idea of, okay, men, sit down. You've had your turn. Let us have our turn. If what we want is equal, you've had the reins for X amount of time. Now give us the reins. That is what we view as equal.
Well, how would and I get that that's probably like an accurate description of it, but how would you think they would word it, right? Because I think that was somewhat of a biased like definition of it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely not. One of the biggest proponents.
No, that's how they say it.
I'll post her like one of the biggest proponents of this. I'll post her podcast where she's saying exactly that, and the guy cannot. He just
down men.
Yeah, so they just say step aside men entirely.
They word it as they word it
before.
They word
I
it
called them
as
third wave, but
they say they're campaigning.
I thought that was third wave. Yeah, I called them third wave.
No, it makes sense.
They word it as campaigning for equality.
Third wave
we're at it,
third wave began in the 80s. First wave was, what we have with suffragettes. Second wave began with Simone de Beauvoir in, I would say the 50s and 60s, and then you had third wave, which kind of came mostly in the 80s and 90s, and then now what's happening in the 2010 forward is a very, very different wave of feminism.
Oh, so was third wave like what they used to call lipstick feminism?
Please don't forget Amelia Earhart. Who's
I don't know that.
Like sexual liberation would probably be third wave.
That's third wave. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Can you again tell me the difference between the first wave and the second wave? You said it was. I got a little lost.
Equal rights, not equal outcomes necessarily, and they didn't expect equality like. A modern day idea would be there's no woman that's asking for the golf tee in golf to be put at the same place that it is in men's golf, and so that idea wouldn't exist in first wave feminism at all because that's not what they wanted, right? Like in the third wave, we had, I think somebody mentioned, maybe Bruce, the Title IX with sports, right? Women just wanted access to be athletes in their own realm and accept that, then we had
affirmative action sort of stuff. Yeah.
Women's basketball, women's soccer, all these things. And so, but then the fourth wave is different.
Title IX was interesting though, because it meant it was more than that. It was like for every male sport, you have to have a female equivalent. Pretty much.
The problem with that is all the male sports are co-op sports. It's just they don't select women. Yeah, no, there's nothing stopping a woman from competing in the NHL.
There is. Oh, you're talking about like that? I'm talking about college, man.
Oh, yeah,
that's what Title IX
college, sure, but not like in the
golf, weightlifting.
Yeah,
there's a lot of singular tennis. Those are all separate, like individual.
Right. Baseball
sports.
is never. It's always softball for women. Like there's no baseball. What I mean, you technically though, you don't want. Well, in college, like Division I, NCAA.
Title IX doesn't say that. Title IX says that if the women can't try out for the men's team, then they have to have a women's team. So like
they can't try out for men's baseball. I don't think.
Right. I did wrestling in junior high, for example. I did wrestling in junior high. I'm very tiny, so when I got to high school, I just couldn't do it anymore. They were just It just wasn't possible, but there were women that still did it. And that was the distinction between, there wasn't a women's wrestling team and a men's wrestling team, but I was allowed to try out for the men's, or what would be the wrestling team. And so like we had a woman playing football, you know, but we didn't have women's football.
Yeah, because they could try out. But now actually, in most academic institutions, women's wrestling is a separate sport.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I
exactly
think there's an obsession with separating everything nowadays, and maybe this is not like the same thing, but I've seen like separate graduations for like black people to white people.
But that's like a whole other thing. Yeah, that's starting to.
Sure, yeah. But I feel like that's just in general like the separation from like I don't know, like this idea of like the patriarchal white males that are ruling everything. I feel like that's incessant in almost all categories.
There's a lot of these identity movements that have basically spiraled out of control.
Yeah, everybody wants to separate themselves from
It's ironic.
typical, you know?
It's
Everybody's
like they're going back. They're going back full circle to the way it was. So they want to separate
Segregation.
themselves.
Yeah, it is weird, right? I've heard that a lot lately. That like, especially at colleges and high schools, they're doing like Black Student Union, but like that's been a thing for a while, like women's clubs and men's clubs and Black Student Unions. But like we're getting to the point where some schools have spaces for women where men aren't allowed, and they're doing the same on race, which is like an odd thing to do because. What about mixed people? And it's all about like identification. It's really strange. I don't really understand how that goes, you know.
But
even enough, we'll have like different like water faucets for the races again, man. Like that's coming back, I think, soon enough.
I don't think that will be the white.
There's a gym that I used to go to, and there's a certain part of that gym at a certain time, men aren't allowed to be there. It's only women.
In the UK.
Yeah, the gym I was going to. Yeah.
I mean, I've
heard
the
gym I go to has a women's only section.
I'm totally cool with that. I think that's great. Like, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like there are men's clubs that are exclusive, and I think there are things men like to do and talk about. And I think the same for women. I don't really, I'm not friends with women, and that's okay because
it is by definition sexist.
So you're not friends with any women?
No, like my wife. I have a wife and 4 children. Like.
Okay, I get what you're saying now. I get it.
Yeah. I don't. Why would I like? There's no reason for me to seek out friendship with women specifically, and anything that I do is dominated by men because of what I do.
Do you seek out friendship as a general thing, or are you like?
Yeah, I have lots of friends. But I mean, also like.
That's not what I said. But do you seek out friendship? Do you seek out like? Are you in store for new friends, or is it just like
all the time?
Really, but just not women.
I have lots of
women. It just doesn't count
because the things that I do don't include women usually. Like, okay, so I own a cigar lounge, right? And I have new friends that come all the time, and they're all men. There's no women that come. Never, ever. I've never had a woman be like, "Hey, can I come have a cigar?" And I go to the shooting gallery a lot, shooting range.
You know, and so I would say I'm here, and so I would say I'm the opposite of that. Like a lot of the things that I end up doing tend to be in men's spaces, and I totally advocate for there being gendered spaces. I think the problem with this is that in the fourth wave feminism, women are allowed to have their own spaces, but no one else is. Otherwise, it's sexist. And so that's another thing that gets really convoluted and just kind of hypocritical.
Yeah,
no,
it is hypocritical.
As long as like I don't have a problem with if you want your cigar bar to be a gentleman's club and no women allowed. I think you should absolutely be allowed to have that.
It just sounds so fishy to me. It just sounds so weird. Like, hey, no girls allowed.
Well, I mean, it seems it's like Mimi to be like, oh, you're the little rascals. But to be honest, like, I would say like if I were saying like, hey, I invited 3 women that I met tonight. First of all, my wife would be like, "What the hell are you doing?" But then also,
you never do it, and so now it means something when you do it.
But also, the dudes, right? But also, the guys that come are not. They don't like. They're getting away from women. Like that's kind of what's happening here. We're, you know what I mean? Like we're not interested in.
I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Okay, but you see, this is my thing. I am like. I do well with like I think women are I'm sure you understand this, like, right? Like women, just being around women is very different than being around guys, right? Like they have generally a different energy, and of course all women are different, but as a general basis, there's like a different thing going on. And I really appreciate that, because I am so masculine in my nature. Like I really do on purpose, like try to go about being like a man. Because maybe like when I was younger, I probably like was emasculated in many ways, and I don't know. It's probably like a deep subconscious thing, to be honest.
There's another
but,
aspect of it, though.
I'm very like direct. I'm very like I don't like.
There's women like that.
Play
but
around, but I really appreciate. But the whole point is, I really appreciate when there's someone that's not like me in my circle, right? I really appreciate the contrast of someone that's like super emotional and very like about like I don't know, like
there are men like that,
understanding other people's points of view. Yeah. There are men like that, but usually most men are not like that. I feel like, and most men that are.
That's what I try to. That's what I try to foster at the lounge, is having like men be okay to be that way. But there's another aspect to it, which is, and I know like gay stuff aside, when there's a single woman and a single man in a group of people that are not interested in that, it changes the dynamic, right? Because now there's like a dick measuring contest that's occurring. And that's not what, at least in my case, I'm trying to foster in the communal male sort of like cigar lounge space. It's not a time for like,
you're measuring dicks anyway. Don't lie to me. You're measuring dicks anyway. Whether it's conscious or subconscious.
It's not the same thing.
Always
it's not the same thing. Women act completely different. If a man comes in the room and it's all women, they will completely shift, and there's this whole like exactly what you just explained in the other direction. And it's not that weird. It's nature.
Well, no, what I mean is it's not weird. It just changes the dynamic of the conversations.
It's nature.
Totally, I agree.
Of course, it changes the dynamic. I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying there should never be like this space or time for just male activity or just female activity. I'm just saying you're definitely losing something by, as a ground rule, whenever you relax, never having women around. Like, I think there's
a wife, man. What are you talking about?
I actually disagree with that. Yeah. I disagree that you're losing something, but I don't know what I mean.
I agree. You are losing.
You know, I've had a completely opposite experience with that, because I've been in a lot of places where women will be just there. It's just it's like they're just another one of the guys. They make jokes.
Yeah, they're not though.
Normal. I know, but
why can't they?
I think that depends on the community, and I think that
depends on this is generalities. I mean, generalities, of course. It does depend on the individual.
Because one friend of mine who plays a lot of MMOs, he is around women a lot. He talks to women a lot, and he says like, yeah, there's nothing really special talking to him. Nothing really.
Is he a single dude or a married dude? Or
he's single,
of course. There you go. He's trying to get his dick wet.
No, he's not. I would know.
He's definitely trying.
I would know.
Well, everybody to a degree is trying to get this.
I would know because I would.
Getting wet.
I think in some way.
I think a normal human.
Yeah, even if it's not like totally.
I have a question for you. The one who said he's trying to get his dick wet. Well, how does their preference of game type, which tends to have a higher percentage, MMORPGs have a higher percentage of females in terms of the gaming world than, say, a first-person shooter. I'm not saying women don't play first-person shooters. I'm saying there are more women who play MMORPGs. And so, if his preference is to play MMORPGs, why does that have anything to do with him being there for a secondary reason? And then not only that, but then elevating the secondary reason as a primary reason based on your own personal beliefs.
I'm stating that when somebody is engaged in a long-term relationship, the way that they tend to deal with the opposite sex entirely changes.
I know the type of girls he's into, and the girls he's hanging out with are not the type of girls he would date. I'm telling you right now. Knowing the type of person he is, So, and when I'm talking to these women, I really don't. I just talk to them like a normal person. It's just.
I think there's a difference. I think there's an important difference here, and right, like I think it's the difference of what you were just saying, right? Getting your dick wet. Like there's some women that you're trying to fuck, and at the end of the day, there's really some women that you're not, like your sister or your grandma or some really ugly girl that you're personally not into, or a million things. There's many women that you might.
Women you don't know. You just talk to online. You just don't care.
Okay.
Well, yeah, you
that's
can't
just
get laid with a random girl. Sure, yeah.
I know.
I mean,
and another thing is like another example I think I would give is like the guys in that room. They're not like hyper masculine. We're all nerds, so like we're not like doing
That's
stuff guys
not
to
really.
do. It's not.
That's an
That's not
unfair
happening.
stereotype. Nerds are just as interested in sexual activity.
Oh, I know they are, and they're bad at it. It's just we're just not doing that. We know where to go to get that kind of stuff. We're not. I'm just saying they're a lot more. Yeah, they're a lot more self-control.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. There's probably plenty of rapport and good relationship, but the
I'm
dynamic.
also saying most of them in a relationships already anyway. So I don't think that's another reason why. So
yeah, if they're in relationships, it does tend to be different.
Yeah,
I don't think that is primarily. I think when men comporting themselves differently when they're in a relationship is out of respect and out of fear of the woman that they're with, rather than 100% of their own choice.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with depending on what their relationship dynamic is. It has a lot to do with their needs being met, whether it's personal, physical, all of those things. It changes your dynamic.
So are we? Because I've been listening a lot to this. So are we saying it's okay for the genders to have their separate spatial time, but they should still mix from time to time? Or are we saying under no circumstances should they ever have their own separate
They should
spaces?
never mix for any reason, not even to reproduce.
having sex is gay, and for any I don't care if it's straight or not, it's gay.
There should be,
No, they're definitely gonna mingle. That's how people meet each other.
Yeah.
Maybe I was being unfair in like the beginning. I don't know. I've heard this idea of like, oh, men can't be friends with women from like some random.
How crazy would that be if men and women were just not allowed to be in the same room anymore?
If the guy's straight, no, men can't be friends. If he's gay,
I would agree. It's very difficult. If they're straight and single, it's going to be difficult, man.
All right, how about
straight and single and they have self-control? They should be fine.
Your sister definitely like you're not gonna fuck your sister.
Self-control,
Like,
then
you
that's
can be
their
friends with your sister,
them
you wouldn't
problem. They need to get their shit together. That's how
I can't agree with that. I'm friends with plenty of the okay. Sure, I'm gay, but that doesn't fucking count for this purpose here.
Oh, it definitely counts.
I definitely think it counts. I think that's
okay. Well, okay. You know what? No, let me put it this way. I can still be friends with all the guys around me too. Like you don't.
That's different because now you're gay. Guys are just different. Guys are just always down to fuck, and so if they're ever not down to fuck, like it's just you don't have this whole game of like
that's so
parading and dancing. I mean, you definitely do have the game, surely.
I'm not constantly thinking about sex. I'm not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you can absolutely be friends with your neighbors. Like
you're reducing men to like just slobbering, sex chasing maniacs. Yeah, some of them are like that.
There's none. I'm not saying there's no romance besides that. I'm just saying there's definitely a difference in.
Literally, that's what men are. Literally,
there's a difference.
I mean, that's what women are.
There's an actual there's no app to fuck all the women around you that you could see their localized place on the map of all the ones that are down to fuck, and you can message them at a moment's notice, right? There's no app for that for women, but there is 100% an app for that for men that is casually used.
Well, then I've never.
No, there's a lot of apps for that. Those apps don't exist.
Women read romance novels.
You guys never heard of Grindr? Never heard of Grindr?
No,
nope.
heard of that.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I've heard this argument before, and
so you're wrong.
I've heard this argument before, and it does make a bit more sense. Although I think you need to flesh it out a lot more, Docio.
Look. This is I'll give you some personal experiences. I don't know how much, but this is how I narrate it in my head, right? I know many friends of mine that I've known since children, right? That I went to first grade with these kids that had much difficulty with the other sex, right? They just could not land girls to fuck them, right? They just couldn't get laid. And after a lot of battling, just said fuck it. I'm just really trying to get off right now, and went to men, right? And those people,
that's heavy.
It's like the prison.
They could easily fuck. Those people are extraordinarily sexual now, right? They have fucked 50 people. They have fucked 60 people. stupid large amount number of
their
men.
problem. That's why.
And it's not so clearly they were chasing that same they had that same drive to do that with women, but for some lacking reason, or for like the reason that I'm saying is that there's a big difference between the market of having sex in women and the market of having sex with men, right? Like you're dealing with different things with women or with men. That has like a resounding difference, I think. And the difference mainly, I think, is men are down to fuck like more than women, at least, or at least they're less cautious about how and when and who.
I think there's another factor that
there's less risk.
I think men
there is actual less risk.
Men are down to fuck, but there's also men that are like, yeah, I like sex, but I'm not desperate. I'm just not chasing it that hard.
It's you can't get it. That's why. Not you personally, though.
It might just be that the guys.
People have different levels of sex drive. There's even guys who don't have a sex drive due to chemical imbalances in their brain.
This isn't old as the hills thing. I mean,
honestly, the way I'm hearing this conversation go, I'm surprised by the number of Muslims in the room. Seriously.
Muslims? Are there Muslims in the room?
No. That's something that I've heard atheists re-at Muslims for all the time. You're just reducing men to their most animalistic tendencies.
Yeah, it's the male gaze shit. I hate that stuff. Patronizing the men.
We're talking about sex, right? So you should talk about
the idea that guys can't look at a woman and go, "That's a chick I would like to talk to," immediately jumping to "That's a girl I'd like to fuck" is just retarded.
That's not what we're saying.
Guys that are like that. I just think some guys are able to control that better than others.
Sounds like
because another thing I remembered that my friend who plays MMOs, another thing he went through is he likes to play as female characters because he likes to stare at their ass because that's how he is. And he would get like lonely nerds messaging him and hitting on him and sending him dick pics, and he's like, I'm a dude.
I actually used to do that. I had a female skin for Minecraft, so whenever I joined Minecraft servers, people would give me free stuff.
I'm not saying there aren't simps out there that are like horny as fuck and don't have self-control. It's just like there's also men that are horny but have self-control or have learned how to maintain it. Like they know like there's a time and place for this and it's not now.
Also could be the case.
I think they also have better social skills too.
Yeah, no. I don't buy that, bro. I don't buy that. So
most men exercise self-control, otherwise we'd have a number of rape problems that we couldn't control. Right. I mean, yes, there are rape issues. I'm not minimizing that, but I'm saying like if that were the case, I mean, we wouldn't have enough space for the bodies of men that we would kill for the amount of raping they do. So, the men are controlling themselves, but the dynamic is different when there is a woman around and a man and the woman are both available.
Yeah, that I agree with, but the statement that guys can't have friends with women just seems ridiculous.
The lexicon, you're gay, right? So you don't count.
Okay, but I don't need my personal anecdote to prove that out.
There are tons
of guys who are friends with their neighbors, and they're not.
The relationship is different, though. It's not. I mean,
1 second. Like,
he still could definitely speak. That's like saying men can't talk about their boyfriend.
One at a time, guys.
Gay men don't count, right? Because they're interested in men for starters. And secondly, it doesn't mean it doesn't mean that that's all you want to do. If you get the opportunity,
I have to butt in there. You may think his view on this doesn't count because he's gay, but I'm straight, and I completely agree with him.
Well, that's what you would say on camera,
right.
though.
Can I make a real quick point of that? That's like saying men abortion because they don't have vaginas. That's like what he can't have a point just because he doesn't have.
Yeah, at the same time too, I also am one of those people that don't.
You're missing the point.
Yeah, either way, you can learn to have an opinion about that.
No, you're missing the point, man. But don't worry about it.
I mean, I'm bisexual, so like, what? I mean.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
I go through.
Like this is
women.
the problem. Bisexual men are not the same as gay men. Like the brain software actually.
No, we agree. Like the dynamic is different for a gay man. For sure, no. I thought you were saying he can't talk about the topic.
No, I meant
because
like
he's a gay man.
Like I meant no, he can talk about it. Obviously, I meant like gay men.
It's hard for him to understand.
That's what I meant.
But I still experience the dynamic.
I
because
agree. I agree. Gay men do not count.
Hold up. I still experience the dynamic for two reasons. One, women can't just look at me and go, "You're gay," especially me. And two, I still appreciate women. I guess I'm technically bi then, because I would screw them too. So there's no.
Yeah, that's bi.
Have you though?
Yeah, I have. I'm no longer interested in that.
Yeah.
It sounds like you just prefer men. You don't mind women, but you just prefer men.
Like the bi-brain software operates differently from the straight software.
I'm pretty sure it's all just a spectrum, isn't it?
It really is. Like it's really different. Like, okay, so I'm reading a book currently on this, and
all right, before you get too much into that book, before you get into the book,
yeah, what's the name of the book?
I think we should carry on this discussion in the tavern because we moved on from feminism a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
the live stream's like well over though too, right?
Yeah, well we're still live, so I'm just going to finish the live stream. The rest of you can go to the tavern to carry on this conversation. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. I'm just going to read out the results from the poll and any final comments in the chat. Gregory Malchuk. Men are banned from leaving Ukraine and young men have been documented being summarily executed by parliamentaries while trying to flee Mariupol for the crime of being a refugee while male. Well, very interesting, didn't know that. Yeah, okay. Not really relevant to the conversation. With regards to the poll was Feminism Is Sexist. We received 14 votes and 71% said yes, they agree feminism is sexist. So once again I'm on the winning side of the poll, it seems. My mind hasn't really been changed a whole lot on this topic. And to be honest, we didn't really get the greatest debate going here. It seems most people are kind of in the same sort of egalitarian mindset in today's room anyway, but we will definitely revisit this topic in a later episode, so hopefully when we come back to it we'll have more diverse opinions in the room. So yeah, thanks.